Deja stood on the concrete sidewalk outside Mercy General Hospital, the September sun beating down on her shoulders, sweat beginning to prickle along her hairline. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat, in her ears, behind her eyes. Beside her, her mother checked her phone. Her younger sister Michelle examined her manicure. Neither of them looked at Deja. "Stop fidgeting," her mother said without glancing up. "You'll wrinkle your dress." Deja stopped fidgeting. She clasped her hands in front of her instead, squeezing her fingers together until the knuckles went white. The pressure helped. It always helped. "Count the cracks in the sidewalk," she told herself. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Here he comes," Michelle said, a smile creeping into her voice. "Your husband." Deja looked up. The automatic doors of the hospital slid open, and a wheelchair emerged into the sunlight. The man in it was pushed by an older woman in an elegant navy dress. His mother, Deja knew, though she'd only seen her in photographs. Behind them walked two men in dark suits. Security. The kind of security regular people didn't have. The wheelchair rolled closer. Deja's breath caught. Dave Birch was not what she'd expected. The photos she'd seen were from before the accident, before the 6 months of surgeries and rehabilitation. In those photos, he'd been standing. Tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of handsome that looked expensive, like it came with a price tag most people couldn't afford. Now he sat in a wheelchair, a thin blanket draped over his lap, and there was something sharp and wounded in his face that hadn't been there before. His jaw was tight. His dark eyes moved across the scene in front of him. Deja's mother, Michelle, and finally Deja herself, with an expression that landed somewhere between confusion and contempt. The wheelchair stopped 3 feet away from her. Silence. Dave looked at Michelle, then at Deja, then back at Michelle. "What's going on here?" His voice was low, edged with something dangerous. "I thought I was supposed to marry that one." He pointed at Michelle. Deja felt her stomach drop. Beside her, Michelle shifted uncomfortably, suddenly fascinated by something on the ground. Dave's mother, Mrs. Birch, stepped forward with a practiced smile. "There's been a small change of plans, darling. Michelle is unavailable." "Unavailable," Dave repeated flatly. "She has other commitments. But the Holloway family has graciously offered their eldest daughter instead." Mrs. Birch gestured toward Deja like she was presenting a slightly disappointing door prize. "This is Deja. She's perfectly suitable, and I truly believe that having a companion right now is crucial for your recovery. You know what I always say? Love heals everything." Dave's laugh was short and bitter. "Love? Right." He turned his gaze back to Michelle. Something raw flickered across his face. Hurt, Deja realized. Real hurt. Underneath all that sharp anger, he was hurt. "She was willing to marry me right up until my accident," he said quietly. "But now that I'm in this chair, suddenly she's unavailable?" Michelle's face flushed red. She still wouldn't look at him. Is it because I'm paralyzed now?" Dave pressed. "Is that it? I'm not worth the trouble anymore?" Deja's mother stepped forward, her voice taking on that smooth, reasonable tone she used when she was about to lie. "Mr. Birch, I assure you this has nothing to do with your condition. Michelle simply has prior obligations that—" "Stop." Dave held up a hand. Deja's mother stopped. He turned to look at Deja. Really look at her for the first time. His eyes moved slowly down her body. The ill-fitting white dress, the sensible flat shoes, the hands still clasped tight in front of her. And she felt herself shrinking under his gaze. His eyes paused briefly on her chest, lingered for just a second. Deja knew what he was seeing, what everyone always saw. Too flat, her mother had said 100 times. At least Michelle got the curves. What man is going to want you? She crossed her arms over herself quickly, hugging her own body. Dave's expression didn't change. "I didn't even know they had another daughter." "Deja keeps to herself," her mother said smoothly. "She's very quiet." "Quiet," Dave repeated. His eyes were still on Deja. Are you mute or something? Deja blinked. What? Are you mute? You haven't said a single word since I got out here. Just standing there staring at me like I'm an animal at the zoo. I'm not mute. Then why aren't you talking? Deja felt a familiar frustration rising in her chest. The same frustration she felt every time someone demanded she perform in ways that didn't make sense to her. Talk. Say something. Be normal. Why can't you just be normal? What do you want me to say? She asked. Something. Anything. He spread his hands. I'm about to marry a complete stranger because my fiancé decided I wasn't worth sticking around for. The least you could do is participate in the conversation. Deja stared at him. He stared back. The silence stretched. Finally, Deja glanced down at his lap, then back up at his face. Your zipper is open, she said. Dave's expression went completely blank. For a long, horrible second, nobody moved. Then Dave looked down. His hand flew to his pants. His ears went red. Michelle made a choking sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Deja's mother looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Dave zipped his fly with sharp, aggressive movements, his jaw so tight Deja could see the muscles jumping. Then he grabbed the wheels of his chair and spun himself around toward the waiting limousine. Whatever, he muttered. Let's get this over with. He wheeled himself toward the car without looking back. His mother hurried after him, shooting Deja a look that was equal parts confusion and irritation. Her mother grabbed her arm hard enough to bruise. What is wrong with you? She hissed. I told you not to embarrass us. His zipper was open, Deja said. I thought he should know. You. Her mother closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, her expression was cold and flat. Get in the car. Don't speak unless spoken to. And for God's sake, try to act normal for once in your life. She released Deja's arm and walked toward the limousine without waiting for a response. Michelle fell into step beside their mother, but not before leaning close to Deja and whispering, Crippled in the brain marries crippled in the legs. Perfect match. Their mother half-heartedly swatted Michelle's arm. Don't say that. But she was smiling. The amusement in her voice was unmistakable. Deja stood alone on the sidewalk. The sun beat down. The cheap white dress clung to her skin. Inside her chest, something small and tired curled up into a ball and waited for this day to be over. She walked toward the limousine to what was either her salvation or her doom. But how did Deja Holloway end up here? About to marry a man who looked at her like she was his mortal enemy? A man who didn't even know she existed until 20 minutes ago? Drop a comment that says Deja deserves better if you're already on her side. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is about to take you on a wild but beautiful ride. Now let's go back to where it all began. 3 months earlier. The Holloway house was a split level in a neighborhood that had seen better days. The gutters needed cleaning. The paint on the shutters was peeling. The front lawn was more dandelion than grass, despite Deja's father's best efforts to keep up with it on weekends. Inside, the furniture was old but clean, the kind of stuff you kept because replacing it wasn't in the budget. Deja's room was in the basement. Not the nice kind of basement, the kind they show in movies with plush carpets and gaming setups. This was an unfinished basement with concrete floors and exposed pipes and a single window near the ceiling that let in just enough light to remind you how little light you were getting. Her mother had moved her down there when Deja was 12. Michelle needs her own room, she'd said. She's growing up. She needs privacy. You understand, don't you, Deja? Deja hadn't understood. But she'd moved anyway. Now she was 24 years old, and the basement was still her room. She'd made it hers over the years. Hung Christmas lights along the pipes for warmth, pinned swimming posters to the concrete walls, arranged her few belongings with the careful precision that made her brain feel quiet. Everything had its place. Everything was exactly where it should be. She was lying on her bed, a twin mattress on a metal frame, staring at the pipes on the ceiling, when she heard the yelling start upstairs. This was not unusual. Her mother yelled a lot these days. Deja closed her eyes and tried to focus on the pattern of the Christmas lights behind her eyelids. Red, blue, green, yellow. Red, blue, green, yellow. Red, blue. Deja, get up here! Her mother's voice cut through the basement door like a knife. Deja opened her eyes, counted to 5, then swung her legs off the bed and climbed the stairs. The kitchen was a battlefield. Her mother stood at the counter, arms crossed, face flushed with anger. Her father sat at the table, head in his hands. Michelle was perched on a stool by the breakfast bar, examining her nails like none of this concerned her. "Sit down," her mother commanded. Deja sat. "We need to talk about your future," her mother said. The way she said future made it sound like a threat. About security, about this family's survival. Deja looked at her father. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Your father," her mother's voice dripped with contempt, "has been laid off. Again. Which means I am now the only person in this house bringing in any income. Do you understand what that means?" Deja understood. It meant her mother would be angry all the time now. It meant there would be more yelling, more silence from her father, more basement. "I have been planning for this family's future for years," her mother continued. "I have been working to secure opportunities that you girls don't even appreciate. And now," she glared at Michelle, "now one of those opportunities is about to disappear because someone is too selfish to do what needs to be done." Michelle looked up from her nails. "I already told you. I'm not marrying a cripple." "Michelle." "No." Michelle's voice was sharp. "I agreed to marry Dave Birch when he was Dave Birch, heir to the Birch family fortune. Tall, handsome, walking. I didn't agree to marry some broken man in a wheelchair who probably can't even—" She waved her hand vaguely. "Perform." Deja didn't know what perform meant in this context, but from the way her mother's face tightened, it wasn't good. "The Birch family is still wealthy," her mother said through gritted teeth. "The marriage contract is still—" "I don't care." Michelle slid off the stool. "Find someone else. I'm not doing it." She walked out of the kitchen. A moment later, the front door slammed. Silence. Deja looked between her parents. Her father still hadn't lifted his head. Her mother was staring at the doorway Michelle had disappeared through, her expression calculating. Then her mother turned to look at Deja. The look made Deja's skin crawl. "No," her father said quietly, finally raising his head. "Eleanor, no." "Why not?" Her mother's voice was calm now. Reasonable. That was worse than the yelling. "The contract specifies a daughter of the Holloway family. It doesn't specify which daughter. She's not... She can't..." Her father struggled for words. "Deja isn't equipped for something like this. She doesn't understand social situations. She takes things literally. She'll embarrass herself. Embarrass all of us. She'll do what she's told," her mother said flatly. For once in her life, she'll be useful to this family." Deja sat very still. She knew they were talking about her. She knew she should probably say something. But the words were all jumbled up in her head, crashing into each other like bumper cars, and by the time she sorted out what she wanted to say, the conversation had already moved on without her. This happened a lot. "Eleanor, I'm begging you." Her father's voice cracked. "Don't do this to her. I'll find work. I'll take double shifts. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't..." "With what?" Her mother laughed bitterly. "Your bad knee? Your swimming career that went nowhere?" She shook her head. "You had your chance, Richard. You failed, just like you always fail. Now it's time for someone else to carry this family." She turned to Deja. "You're getting married," she said. "To Dave Birch, in 3 months." Deja blinked. "But I don't know him." "You don't need to know him. You just need to show up, say yes, and not embarrass us." Her mother paused. "Can you do that? Can you do one simple thing right?" Deja looked at her father. He looked back at her with wet eyes. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. He wanted to fight. She could see it, but something in him was broken. Had been broken for a long time. And the fight wouldn't come. "I'll fix this," he whispered. "Deja, sweetheart, I'll fix this, I promise." Deja nodded. She didn't believe him, but she nodded anyway. The next 3 months were a blur of quiet horror. Her mother handled all the wedding details. Not that there were many. The Birch family was doing most of the planning. The Holloways were simply expected to produce a bride. Or Deja was measured for a dress, told when to show up, given a list of things not to say. Her mother made her practice walking in heels until her feet bled, then told her she walked like a broken marionette and switched her to flats. Michelle, meanwhile, was allowed to do whatever she wanted. She went to parties. She stayed out late. She brought home shopping bags and didn't explain where the money came from. Their mother never said a word. Deja spent most of her time in the basement, lying on her bed, staring at the Christmas lights. Red, blue, green, yellow. Red, blue, green, yellow. Her father came down sometimes. He'd sit on the edge of her bed and talk to her in a soft voice. About nothing. About everything. He told her stories about his swimming days, back when he was young and his knee still worked. Back when he thought he might make it to the Olympics. "You've got the gift, you know," he said one night, 2 weeks before the wedding. "You're better than I ever was. I've seen you in the water, Deja. You're like a fish, like you were born there." Deja smiled. Swimming was the one thing that made sense to her. In the water, there were no social rules to memorize, no facial expressions to decode, no hidden meanings behind words. There was just her body and the water and the beautiful simplicity of move forward, breathe, move forward, breathe. Her mother had pulled her out of swim team when she was 14. "Waste of time," she'd said. "You'll never be good enough to go anywhere with it. Focus on something useful." Deja had never stopped swimming, though. She found public pools. She went early in the morning, on before anyone else arrived. She swam laps until her arms burned and her mind went quiet and everything felt okay for a little while. "Maybe after this is all over," her father said, "we can find you a coach, a real one, get you back in the water properly." Mama wouldn't like that. Her father was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Maybe it doesn't matter what Mama likes." They didn't talk about it again. 2 weeks later, her father collapsed. He'd been working double shifts at 3 different jobs: warehouse work, delivery driving, overnight stocking at a grocery store, trying to earn enough money to pay off the debts, to stop the wedding, to give Deja a way out. They found him unconscious in the warehouse parking lot at 6 a.m. Heart palpitations, the doctor said. Exhaustion, malnutrition. His body had simply given up. Deja sat in the hospital waiting room for 7 hours. Her mother came for 20 minutes, spoke to the doctors, and left. Michelle didn't come at all. When her father finally woke up, Deja was the only one there. "Hey, fish stick," he said weakly. It was his nickname for her, from when she was small, from when things were simpler. "Hey, Daddy." "I'm sorry." His voice cracked. I tried to fix it. I know. You don't have to marry him. We'll figure something out. Daddy." Deja took his hand. It felt so thin, so fragile, like if she squeezed too hard, he would break. "It's okay, I'll do it. Deja, if I marry him, Mama will stop being so angry. She'll have the money she wants. She won't make you work so hard anymore." Deja squeezed his hand gently. "And then maybe, when everything calms down, you can help me find a swim coach, like you said." Her father's eyes filled with tears. "You're too good," he whispered. "Too good for any of us. You know that, right? You're the best thing I ever did." Deja didn't know what to say to that, so she just held his hand and sat with him until he fell asleep. The wedding was small, a courthouse ceremony, 20 minutes of legal formalities. No guests except the immediate families and Dave's security team. Deja wore a dress that wasn't white. Her mother had said white would be presumptuous for a second-choice bride. So she wore pale blue instead. It fit slightly better than the white dress from the hospital, but not by much. Dave wore a suit. He sat in his wheelchair throughout the ceremony and spoke his vows in a flat, mechanical voice. He didn't look at Deja. He didn't look at anyone. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," there was an awkward pause. Dave sat in his wheelchair. Deja stood beside him. The height difference was absurd. She would have to bend almost in half to reach him, and he clearly wasn't going to ask her to. For a long, painful moment, nobody moved. Then Dave's mother leaned forward and whispered something to the officiant. The officiant cleared his throat. You may acknowledge the bride. Dave looked up at Deja. His jaw was tight. His eyes were unreadable. He extended his hand. Deja stared at it for a second, unsure what to do. Then she reached down and took it. His grip was firm but brief, a single squeeze like a business handshake, before he released her and turned his wheelchair toward the door. "We're done here," he said to no one in particular. And then just like that, she was married. Mrs. Deja Birch, wife of a man who wouldn't even kiss her. But this is just the beginning. Because Deja is about to enter the Birch household. A house full of secrets, expectations, and one very angry man in a wheelchair who has no idea that the strange, quiet woman he just married is about to change his entire life. And he's about to change hers. Comment, protect Deja. If you're already ready to fight everyone in this story. Like this video and subscribe because this is where things get real. Dave's mother has plans. Dave has other plans. And Deja is about to be caught in the middle of all of it. The Birch mansion wasn't a house. It was a statement. Deja stood in the marble foyer, her small suitcase clutched in both hands, and tried to make sense of what she was seeing. The ceiling stretched up 3 stories. A chandelier the size of a small car hung overhead, dripping crystals that caught the afternoon light and scattered rainbows across the walls. A curved staircase swept upward on both sides, meeting at a landing dominated by a portrait of a stern-looking man in a suit. She counted the crystals on the chandelier, gave up at 237. "Don't just stand there blocking the doorway." Dave's voice cut through her concentration. He wheeled past her without stopping, his chair gliding smoothly across the polished marble floor. A man in a dark suit, one of the security team from the hospital, followed behind him, carrying luggage that probably cost more than everything Deja owned combined. "Mrs. Birch, allow me to show you to your room." Deja turned. A woman in a crisp gray uniform stood beside her. Middle-aged, dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, expression carefully neutral. A housekeeper, Deja realized. The Birches had staff. "My room?" Deja repeated. "Yes, ma'am, the East Wing. I'll take your luggage up." The woman glanced at the small suitcase in Deja's hands with something that might have been pity. All of it. Deja looked down at her suitcase. It contained 3 changes of clothes, her toothbrush, a worn copy of a swimming techniques book her father had given her years ago, and a photo of her dad from his competitive swimming days. And that was everything she owned. "I can carry this," Deja said. "As you wish, ma'am." The housekeeper turned and began walking. "This way, please." Deja followed. The East Wing turned out to be an entire section of the house that was bigger than the Holloway home. Deja's room, her room, the housekeeper kept calling it, as if Deja actually belonged here, had a 4-poster bed large enough to fit 6 people, a sitting area with velvet couches, a private bathroom with a tub she could swim laps in, and windows overlooking a garden that looked like something from a movie. She stood in the middle of the room and turned in a slow circle. "Is everything to your satisfaction, ma'am?" Deja looked at the housekeeper. "There's a fireplace." "Yes, ma'am." "In a bedroom." "Yes, ma'am. Shall I have it lit this evening? The nights are getting cooler." Deja stared at the fireplace. It was made of white marble, with carved flowers along the mantel. She had never seen a fireplace that wasn't on a television screen. "I don't know how to use a fireplace," she said. The housekeeper's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe, or confusion, before settling back into professional neutrality. "That won't be necessary, ma'am. The staff handles all household operations. You simply need to ring if you require anything." She pointed to a small bell on the nightstand. Deja picked it up and examined it. It was silver, with a tiny handle shaped like a rose. "I ring this and someone comes?" "Yes, ma'am, day or night." "What if I ring it by accident?" "Then someone will come, and you can tell them it was an accident." Deja considered this. That seems inefficient." The housekeeper blinked. For a moment, her professional mask cracked, and something almost like amusement crossed her face. "I suppose it does, ma'am." She cleared her throat. Dinner is at 7. Mrs. Birch Sr. requests your presence in the formal dining room. I'll send someone to escort you. She turned and left before Deja could ask what a formal dining room was and how it differed from a regular one. Deja spent the next 2 hours exploring her room. She counted the flowers carved into the fireplace mantel. 47. She tested the bed by lying on it in different positions and determined that it was too soft. Her body sank into it like quicksand, which made her feel trapped. She discovered that the bathroom had not one but 3 different kinds of soap, and all of which smelled like things that weren't soap. Lavender, vanilla, something called ocean breeze that smelled nothing like the ocean. She found the closet and stopped breathing for a moment. It was the size of her basement bedroom, and it was full. Dresses, blouses, skirts, pants, shoes, so many shoes, lined up on racks that went from floor to ceiling. Everything was in her size. Everything still had tags. Someone had bought an entire wardrobe and hung it here, waiting for her. Deja touched the sleeve of a blue silk blouse. It was softer than anything she'd ever worn. She pulled her hand back and closed the closet door. It didn't feel like hers. None of this felt like hers. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock on her door. "Ma'am, I'm here to escort you to dinner." Deja opened the door, and a young man in a suit stood in the hallway. Not security, she thought. Maybe another kind of staff. He smiled at her politely. "This way, please." She followed him through a maze of hallways. Left, right, down a staircase, left again. She tried to memorize the route but lost track after the 3rd turn. The house was too big, too full of identical-looking doors and paintings of people who looked disapproving. Finally, they arrived at a set of double doors. The young man opened them and gestured for her to enter. The formal dining room was formal. A long table stretched the length of the room. 20 chairs at least, though only 3 places were set. More chandeliers. More paintings. Candles burning in silver holders. And at the head of the table, Dave's mother sat like a queen surveying her kingdom. But Dave was already seated to her right, his wheelchair pulled up close to the table. He didn't look up when Deja entered. Ah, there she is. Mrs. Birch's smile was warm, but her eyes were calculating. "Come, sit. You must be famished." Deja walked to the empty chair across from Dave and sat down. The chair was heavy, real wood, probably antique. She scooted it forward and her feet didn't quite touch the floor comfortably. "I trust your room is satisfactory?" Mrs. Birch asked. "There's a fireplace," Deja said. Mrs. Birch waited for more. When nothing came, she laughed. A practiced social laugh. "Yes, all the bedrooms in the East Wing have fireplaces. This house was built in 1892, you know, before central heating was reliable." 1892, Deja repeated. She looked around the room with new eyes. "This house is 131 years old. 132 in March, yes. Does anything break? Old things break more often. The entropy increases over time." Dave made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a scoff. Deja couldn't tell. She looked at him, but he was staring at his empty plate. "We have an excellent maintenance staff," Mrs. Birch said smoothly. "Nothing breaks for long. Now, let's eat, shall we?" She rang a small bell, silver, like the one in Deja's room, and within seconds, a team of servers appeared carrying plates. Deja watched them set down dish after dish. Some kind of soup, bread in a basket, a salad with leaves she didn't recognize, a main course involving meat in a sauce that smelled like wine. There were multiple forks, multiple spoons, multiple glasses. She picked up the fork closest to her plate, frowning at it. Why did she have 2 forks? "That's the salad fork," Dave said, as if hearing the question in her head, but his voice was flat. Deja looked down at the fork. "It's smaller than the other one." "Yes, that's how you know it's for salad." "Why does salad need a different fork?" Dave finally looked up. His expression was caught somewhere between irritation and disbelief. "Because that's how it's done." "But the salad goes in my mouth either way. The fork doesn't change the salad." "It's about—" Dave stopped, pressed his lips together. "Never mind. Eat however you want." "David," his mother said warningly. "What?" She asked a question. I don't have an answer. He picked up his wine glass and took a long drink. I don't have answers for any of this. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Deja picked up the smaller fork and began eating her salad. The leaves were bitter but interesting. She chewed slowly, counting each bite. The main course was half finished when Mrs. Birch set down her utensils and folded her hands. We should discuss expectations, she said. Dave's jaw tightened. Mother, no, David. This needs to be addressed. She turned to Deja with that warm, calculating smile. My dear, I want to be completely transparent with you. I believe honesty is the foundation of any successful arrangement. Deja nodded. She appreciated honesty. Most people weren't honest. They said things they didn't mean and expected you to understand anyway, which was exhausting. David's accident was a tragedy, Mrs. Birch continued. We nearly lost him. When I got that phone call, she paused, pressing a hand to her chest. It made me realize how fragile life is, how quickly everything can change. Deja nodded again. This was true. Life was fragile. Her father's collapse had taught her that. It also made me realize what we would have lost. Not just David, but the Birch family legacy. David is my only child. If something were to happen to him. Mrs. Birch let the sentence hang. We need heirs. The family needs to continue. Deja processed this. You want grandchildren? Yes. Mrs. Birch's smile widened, pleased that Deja understood. I want grandchildren, and I want them soon. David is young and healthy. His injury doesn't prevent him from… She waved her hand delicately. Fulfilling that duty. And you're young. Healthy. There's no reason to wait. Deja looked at Dave. He was staring at his plate again, his knuckles white around his wine glass. You want me to have a baby? Deja said slowly, working through the logic. With Dave. Soon. As soon as possible, yes. I understand this is a new marriage, and you two will need time to adjust to each other. But I'm hoping that within the next few months… I don't know how to take care of a baby, Deja interrupted. Mrs. Birch blinked. Well, we have staff for that. Nannies, nurses. If there's staff, why do you need me? Another pause. Mrs. Birch's smile became slightly fixed. Because, my dear, the child needs to be biologically ours, yours and David's. That's rather the point. Deja considered this. So you want me to make a baby, and then staff will raise it, and then, well, what happens to me? The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Dave set down his wine glass with a sharp clink. She wants you gone, he said bluntly. That's the deal. You give her a grandchild, you sign away your parental rights, and you leave with a nice severance package. Isn't that right, Mother? Mrs. Birch's expression flickered. Annoyance, quickly suppressed. David, that's a very crude way of putting it. But accurate. I was going to discuss terms more delicately. Why? Dave laughed bitterly. She asked a direct question. You should give her a direct answer. That's what you want, isn't it, Deja? Direct answers? Deja nodded. Yes, direct is better. Dave spread his hands. There you go. So here's the direct version. My mother wants a grandchild. She doesn't care about you. She doesn't care about me. She cares about the family legacy. He spat the last two words like they were poison. Give her what she wants, and you can walk away. That's the arrangement. Deja absorbed this information. She looked at Mrs. Birch, who was watching her with sharp, evaluating eyes. Then at Dave, who had gone back to staring at his plate, his jaw tight with something that looked like shame. Okay, Deja said finally. I understand the arrangement. Mrs. Birch's smile returned, relieved. Wonderful. I knew you were a practical girl. Now, as for timing, but I can't do that. Mrs. Birch blinked. I'm sorry? I can't do that, Deja repeated. Those things, the things that make babies, they're only supposed to happen between married people who love each other. The silence that followed was thick. Dave looked up from his plate, his expression shifting from resignation to curiosity. Where did you hear that? Mrs. Birch asked carefully. My father. Deja's voice was matter-of-fact. He was talking to Michelle once. She had been doing those things with someone she wasn't married to, someone she didn't love. He was upset. He said those things should only happen between married people who love each other. He said Michelle was giving herself away for nothing. She remembered the conversation clearly. She'd been passing by the kitchen, and her father's voice had been sharp with disappointment. Those things should be sacred, Michelle. Between two people who love each other, who are committed to each other. Not just recreation. Michelle had laughed and called him old-fashioned. But Deja had filed the information away, and the way she filed everything. A rule to be followed, a pattern to be understood. We're married, Deja continued, working through her logic out loud. But we don't love each other. I don't even know what that means, loving someone that way. So the conditions aren't met. My dear, that's a very simplistic view of, is my father wrong? The question was genuine. Deja looked at Mrs. Birch with open curiosity. If this rule was incorrect, she wanted to know. She was always willing to update her understanding when presented with new information. Mrs. Birch's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Your father, she said slowly, had a particular perspective on. He said it was important. He was very serious when he said it. Deja frowned slightly, trying to remember the exact words. He said when you give yourself to someone, it should mean something. He said Michelle was being careless with something precious. Dave made a sound, something between a laugh and a cough. When Deja looked at him, his expression had changed. There was something almost like respect in his eyes. So I will follow the rule, Deja concluded. When the conditions are met, when we are married people who love each other, then we can discuss the arrangement. Until then, I can't. That's not how this works, Mrs. Birch said, her voice tightening. Love isn't a prerequisite for. It is for me. Deja picked up her fork and resumed eating her dinner as if the conversation was over. Because for her, it was. The rule had been stated. The logic was clear. There was nothing more to discuss. Mrs. Birch stared at her with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. Dave, for the first time since the wedding, almost smiled. Later that night, there was a knock on Deja's bedroom door. She had changed into her own pajamas, an old t-shirt from a swim meet she'd competed in at age 13, soft from years of washing, and was sitting on the floor beside the bed. The bed was too soft. The floor was better. Come in, she said. The door opened. Dave wheeled himself inside, then stopped when he saw her on the floor. What are you doing down there? Sitting. On the floor. Yes. There's a bed, multiple chairs, a very expensive chaise lounge by the window. The floor is more stable. Dave stared at her for a long moment. Then he wheeled himself further into the room, stopping a few feet away from where she sat. That thing you said at dinner, he began. About love. Deja looked up at him. Like, was I wrong? No, you weren't wrong. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I've never heard anyone say it quite like that. Like it was a mathematical equation. Isn't it? If A, then B. If married plus love, then those things. If not love, then not those things. The logic is clear. Most people don't think about it logically. I think about everything logically. It's the only way that makes sense. Dave studied her for a long moment. In the lamplight, his face was softer than it had been at dinner. The hard edges smoothed away, something almost gentle in his expression. Do you know what love is? He asked. Have you ever felt it? Deja considered the question seriously. I love my father. When he's sad, I feel sad. When he's hurt, I want to fix it. When he collapsed. She paused, remembering the hospital, the waiting room, the 7 hours alone. I was very scared. I didn't want him to die. Is that love? That's one kind of love, yeah. I don't know if there are other kinds. I've read about romantic love in books. People do illogical things because of it. They make decisions that don't make sense. They feel things in their chest and their stomach that have nothing to do with those organs. She frowned. It sounds uncomfortable. Dave laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of him. It can be, yeah. Have you felt it? Romantic love? His laughter faded. He looked away toward the window where the night sky was dark beyond the expensive curtains. I thought I did, with Michelle. His voice was bitter. I was wrong. How do you know you were wrong? Because the moment things got hard, the moment I became inconvenient, she left. He turned back to Deja. Real love doesn't leave. At least that's what I've always believed. Maybe I'm as naive as you are. I'm not naive. I just don't have enough data. Something shifted in his expression. That almost smile again. No, he said quietly. I don't think you are naive. I think you're the most honest person I've ever met. I don't know how to be anything else. I know. That's what makes it extraordinary. He said the word like it meant something. Like she meant something. Deja filed this away for later analysis. Her chest felt strange, tight but not painful. She would need to investigate this sensation when she had more data. Like my mother is going to keep pushing, Dave said after a moment. About the arrangement. I know. She won't give up easily. I won't change my mind. Deja met his eyes. The rule is the rule. My father was very clear about it. What if... Dave hesitated. What if someday the conditions are met? What if someday we're married people who love each other? Deja thought about this carefully. Then the rule would be satisfied, and we could discuss it. But you don't know what love is. Not yet. But I can learn. I learn everything eventually. I'm just slower than other people at some things. You're not slow. Dave said it with surprising certainty. I've been watching you all day. You're not slow at all. You process things differently. You see patterns other people don't see. You ask questions nobody else thinks to ask. He paused. Have you ever heard of autism? Deja knew the word. She'd heard it on television, in documentaries about children who couldn't speak or who screamed in grocery stores. I'm not like those people, she said. Autism isn't one thing. It's a spectrum. Some people need a lot of support. Some people just experience the world differently. He wheeled himself slightly closer. The way you count things, the way you prefer the floor to the bed, the way you take everything literally and say exactly what you mean without any social filter. My mother says that's why no one likes me. Your mother, Dave said flatly, is wrong. Deja didn't know what to say to that. I'm not a doctor, Dave continued. I could be completely off base, but if I'm right, there's nothing wrong with you, Deja. There's just a different way your brain works. And honestly, he smiled, a real smile, the first one she'd seen from him. It's kind of refreshing. Everyone around me is so careful about what they say, always performing, always managing. You just say things, like the zipper thing. Deja felt her cheeks warm. You were embarrassed. I was mortified, but I was also... He stopped, shook his head. Never mind. The point is, you don't have to sleep with me. Not until you're ready. Not until we both are. I'll handle my mother. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. He turned his wheelchair toward the door, then paused. Deja? Yes? Thank you for being honest. I don't get a lot of that. Before she could respond, he wheeled himself toward the door. Good night? Aye, Deja? Good night. He paused in the doorway with a smile. For what it's worth, I think your father is right. Those things should mean something. Most people forget that. He wheeled out and closed the door behind him. Deja sat on the floor for a long time afterward, thinking about rules and conditions and the strange tightness in her chest when he smiled at her. She replayed it in her memory. The way his eyes had crinkled, the way his whole face had softened. It was a nice smile. She hadn't expected him to have a nice smile. She lay down on the floor and stared at the ceiling. Autism, she thought. Different, not broken. It was a lot to think about. 2 weeks later, the days settled into a strange rhythm. Deja explored the house methodically, section by section, mapping it in her mind. She learned where the kitchens were. Multiple kitchens. Why did anyone need multiple kitchens? Where the library was. 2 stories of books, which made her chest feel tight with happiness. Where the pools were. Pools. Plural. There was an indoor pool in the basement and an outdoor pool in the garden. She discovered them on her 5th day and stood at the edge of the indoor pool for a full hour, watching the water move. She didn't swim. She didn't have a swimsuit, not among the expensive clothes in her closet. And she wasn't sure if she was allowed. But she came back every day just to look at the water. On the 10th day, Dave found her there. "You come here a lot," he said. Aunt Deja didn't turn around. "The water is calming. Do you swim?" "I used to." "Used to?" "My mother made me stop. She said it was a waste of time." Dave was quiet for a moment. Then, "Was it? A waste of time?" Deja finally turned to look at him. He was watching her with that curious expression he got sometimes, like she was a puzzle he was trying to figure out. "No," she said. It was the only thing that made sense. "What do you mean?" Deja struggled to find the words. "In the water, I don't have to think about the right thing to say, or the right way to stand, or whether I'm making the right face. There's just movement. Forward. Breathe. Forward. Breathe. Everything is simple." That sounds peaceful. It was. Dave looked at the pool, then back at her. "I'll have swimsuits sent to your room, whatever style you want. And you can use the pools whenever you like, indoor or outdoor. My mother might complain about propriety or whatever, but I'll handle her." Deja felt something warm bloom in her chest. "You don't have to do that." "I know." He shrugged. "But you should have something that makes sense. Everyone deserves that." The swimsuits arrived the next day, 10 of them, in various colors and styles. Deja chose a simple navy blue one-piece and went to the indoor pool at 5 a.m. when she was sure no one else would be awake. The moment she slipped into the water, something inside her unlocked. She dove under, let the silence swallow her, felt the familiar pressure of the water against her skin, the way her body remembered exactly how to move. She swam laps. 10, 20, 50. Lost count somewhere after 80. When she finally stopped, out gasping for air at the edge of the pool, an hour had passed. Her arms were shaking. Her lungs were burning. She hadn't felt this alive in years. Dave's attempts to satisfy his mother's demands were creative. He never pushed Deja physically, never tried to force himself on her. But he did try to create situations where things might happen naturally, if she were willing. "The heating in your room is broken," he announced one evening. "You'll have to sleep in my room tonight." Deja looked at him. "The heating in my room works fine. I checked it an hour ago." He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Did you?" "Yes, it was 72 degrees, very consistent." "Ah, well, maybe it broke after that. I'll ask the maintenance staff to check." She walked away before he could respond. Another night, he invited her to watch a movie in his room. A horror film, very scary. You might need someone to hold on to. Deja agreed. She liked movies, even if she didn't always understand why characters made the choices they made. The movie was indeed scary. People got killed in creative ways. There was a lot of screaming. Deja watched with clinical interest, occasionally commenting on the unrealistic blood splatter patterns. Dave watched her more than he watched the movie, a bemused expression on his face. When a particularly intense scene came on, he casually stretched his arm toward the back of the couch, a move Deja recognized from movies as a precursor to putting his arm around someone. "What are you doing?" she asked. He froze. "Stretching." "That's not a natural stretching position. Your rotator cuff is at an awkward angle." He lowered his arm. "You're right. It was uncomfortable." They finished the movie in silence. When it ended, Deja stood up. "Thank you for the movie. The villain's motivation was unclear, but the cinematography was interesting." She left. The most memorable attempt came on a rainy Thursday. Dave called her to his study, a room full of books and papers and a massive desk that Deja thought was impractical because you couldn't reach things on the other side. "I need your help with something," he said. Deja stood in the doorway. "What?" "I have a knot in my shoulder, from the wheelchair. It's very painful. I need someone to massage it." Deja knew this was probably another scheme, but she also knew that wheelchair users often did develop muscle tension from the repetitive motions. Okay," she said. She walked behind his chair and put her hands on his shoulders. They were indeed tense, knotted with stress and strain. She began to work at the muscles the way her father had taught her once after his swim meets. Dave made a sound. Surprise, maybe, or relief. "You're actually good at this." "My father used to swim. His shoulders would get tight. I would help him." "Your father swam?" "Competitively, when he was young, before his knee got injured." "Is that where you learned? From him?" "He taught me the basics. Then I taught myself more. There are patterns in the water, physics. Once you understand them, swimming becomes efficient." She worked at a particularly stubborn knot. Dave hissed in pain, then relaxed as the tension released. "Deja?" "Yes?" "Do you miss it? My swimming competitively?" Her hand stilled for a moment. "I don't know. I never swam competitively. My mother pulled me from the team before my first real meet. She said there was no point." "But you wanted to?" Deja thought about it. "Yes," she said finally. "I wanted to." "What if you could? Would you try again?" "I'm too old now. Swimmers peak young. I missed my window." "Says who?" "Statistics, training requirements, physical—" "Forget statistics." Dave turned his chair to face her, and she had to step back. His eyes were intense. "If someone gave you the chance, if someone said, 'Deja, I'll get you a coach, I'll pay for training, I'll give you every resource you need,' would you take it?" Deja stared at him. Why would someone do that? Just answer the question. She felt something strange in her chest. A fluttering, like a fish trapped in a net. "I don't know. Maybe. Yes, I think yes." Dave nodded slowly. "Good to know." He turned back to his desk and began shuffling papers. "You can go. Thanks for the massage." Deja stood there for a moment, confused by the abrupt dismissal. Then she left. She didn't know it then, but that conversation was the beginning of something. A seed planted in Dave's mind that would bloom into something neither of them expected. 3 days later, an invitation that changed everything arrived. A formal card on thick cream paper, delivered on a silver tray by one of the household staff. "The Harrington family requests your presence at their annual autumn celebration. Cocktails, dinner, and poolside entertainment." Deja looked up from the card. Why would anyone have poolside entertainment in autumn?" The staff member, a young woman named Maria who had been kind to Deja, smiled slightly. "The Harringtons have an indoor pool facility, ma'am. Climate-controlled. It's quite famous." "Oh." Dave wheeled into the room, his own invitation in hand. His expression was complicated. Annoyance, resignation, and something else Deja couldn't identify. "We're expected to attend," he said. "Mother already RSVP'd for us." "Why?" "Because the Harringtons are important. Because my mother wants to show off the new Birch bride. Because—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "Because I haven't been seen in public since the accident and people are starting to talk." Deja considered this. What are they saying? That I'm broken, that I'm hiding, that the great Birch heir is finished. His hands gripped his wheel rims hard. "My mother thinks if I show up, if we show up, it'll put the rumors to rest." "Will it?" "I don't know. Probably not. They'll just find new things to whisper about." He looked at her. "You don't have to go if you don't want to. I can make an excuse." Deja thought about the house, the endless rooms, the beautiful silent pool where she swam alone every morning. "I'll go," she said. Dave looked surprised. "You will? You said people are talking about you, saying you're hiding." She met his eyes. "You're not hiding. You're just here. If going to the party shows them you're not hiding, then we should go. Something shifted in Dave's expression. That curious look again. Like she'd said something unexpected. Something that mattered. Okay, he said quietly. We'll go together. But here's the thing about parties. They have a way of changing everything. And this party, with its champagne and whispers and a pool that's about to become the most important place in both their lives, is about to change Dave and Deja forever. Comment: Deja is a queen if you're obsessed with her energy. Like this video and subscribe because the next part is about to send sparks flying. The Harrington estate made the Birch mansion look modest. Deja stood at the entrance, her fingers gripping the small clutch purse Maria had pressed into her hands before she left. The dress she wore was emerald green. Dave had chosen it, or rather, he'd had someone choose it. And when she'd put it on, he'd looked at her for a long moment without saying anything. She still didn't know what that look meant. Ready? Dave asked from his wheelchair beside her. No, Deja said honestly. Good, neither am I. Let's go anyway. The doors opened and sound washed over them. Music, laughter, the clink of glasses, the hum of 100 conversations happening at once. Deja's skin prickled. Too much noise, too many people, too many variables she couldn't predict or control. She started counting the chandeliers. 1, 2, 3. Breathe, Dave said quietly. Just stay next to me. If anyone talks to you and you don't know what to say, just smile and nod. Rich people love it when you smile and nod. That seems dishonest. That's high society. A woman in a sparkling silver dress approached them, her smile wide and predatory. David, oh my God, David Birch. We were so worried about you. She leaned down and air-kissed both of Dave's cheeks. Deja watched this ritual with fascination. The woman's lips never actually touched his skin. What was the point? And this must be the new wife. The woman turned to Deja, her eyes scanning her from head to toe in a way that felt like being measured for a coffin. How brave of you, dear, taking on such a challenge. Deja didn't know what to say to that. Was Dave a challenge? He was difficult sometimes, but everyone was difficult sometimes. Thank you, she said, because it seemed like the woman expected a response. She's precious, the woman said to Dave, as if Deja weren't standing right there. Where did you find her? She was a gift, Dave said smoothly. From God. Excuse us. He wheeled forward and Deja followed, relieved to escape. Was I supposed to say more? She asked once they were out of earshot. No, you were perfect. Saying less is always better with people like that. Who was she? I have absolutely no idea. The next hour was a blur of introductions, air kisses, and conversations that seemed to mean nothing. Deja smiled and nodded as instructed. People looked at her with curiosity, pity, or barely concealed judgment. She heard snippets of whispers when they thought she couldn't hear. The other sister, apparently. Simple from what I've heard. Probably just after the money. Poor David, first the accident, now this. She retreated inside herself, counting things to stay calm. 37 candles on the nearest table. 14 waiters circulating with trays. 206 crystals on the chandelier directly above her head. Dave noticed. He always seemed to notice. You okay? He murmured during a rare moment when no one was approaching them. There are a lot of people. Too many? I don't know my limit. I've never been around this many before. He frowned. We can leave whenever you want. Just say the word. Your mother said we had to stay until after dinner. My mother can... He stopped himself, took a breath. My mother isn't the one standing here feeling overwhelmed. If you need to go, we go. Deja looked at him. The light from the chandeliers caught his face at an angle, illuminating the sharp line of his jaw, the curve of his cheekbones, the dark sweep of his eyelashes. His eyes were brown, but not just brown. There were flecks of gold in them, she realized. Thought she hadn't noticed that before. Something stirred in her chest. A flutter. Warmth spreading outward from her center. She looked away quickly, confused. I can stay a little longer, she said. The trouble started when Dave began drinking. 1 glass of champagne became 2. 2 became 4. His cheeks flushed. His words became looser, his gestures larger. Deja watched with growing unease as he laughed too loudly at someone's joke, as he accepted another glass from a passing waiter. Maybe you should slow down, she said quietly. Maybe you should mind your own business. The words stung. Deja pulled back, surprised by the sharpness in his voice. Dave immediately looked guilty. I'm sorry. I didn't mean… It's just… Everyone keeps looking at me, waiting for me to fall apart, waiting for proof that I'm finished. You're not finished. Aren't I? He laughed bitterly and drained his glass. Look at me, Deja. I'm 28 years old and I can't even stand up to shake someone's hand. My fiancé left me. My mother sees me as a breeding tool. My own body betrayed me. He grabbed another glass from a passing tray. So yeah, maybe I want to get drunk. Maybe I want to feel something other than this for 5 goddamn minutes. Deja didn't know what to say. She understood wanting to escape. She escaped into the water, into counting, into patterns that made sense when nothing else did. But she didn't think alcohol was going to give him what he was looking for. I think we should leave, she said. We just got here. You've had too much to drink. People are starting to watch. Let them watch. He spread his arms wide. That's what they came for, isn't it? The David Birch show? Let's give them what they want. Dave, ladies and gentlemen. He raised his glass, his voice carrying across the room. Several conversations stuttered to a halt. Thank you all for coming to witness my triumphant return to society. As you can see, I am completely fine. Oh no. Deja reached for him, but he was already wheeling himself away from her, toward the center of the room where a cluster of guests had gathered near the indoor pool. She followed, her heart hammering. You know what the best part is? Dave continued, his words starting to slur. Everyone thought I was done. Finished, but I'm not. He slammed his hand against the armrest of his wheelchair. This chair isn't me. I'm still in here. I'm still… He grabbed the wheels and propelled himself forward, through the crowd, until he reached the edge of the pool. The water gleamed turquoise under the elegant lighting, surrounded by lounge chairs and tropical plants. I can do this, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. I can do this. And then, to Deja's horror, he gripped the armrests and tried to stand. Dave, don't… His legs buckled instantly. His body pitched forward. And Dave Birch, heir to the Birch fortune, husband of 3 weeks, beautiful broken man who had smiled at her like she mattered, tumbled headfirst into the pool. The next 3 seconds lasted forever. Deja saw it happen in slow motion, his body hitting the water, the splash erupting upward, his wheelchair tipping and crashing to the tile, his form sinking beneath the surface. Around her, chaos erupted. Women screamed, men shouted, someone yelled for a lifeguard, someone else yelled to call 911, and phones came out. So many phones. People filming instead of helping. Deja saw a man in a tuxedo actually adjusting his angle to get a better shot. Something snapped inside her. She didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't count. She kicked off her heels, took 3 running steps, and dove. The water swallowed her whole. For one perfect moment, everything was silent. The noise of the party, the screaming, the chaos, all of it disappeared. There was only the water, cool and familiar, wrapping around her like an old friend she'd missed desperately. Then she opened her eyes and saw Dave. He was sinking. His arms moved weakly, trying to swim, but his legs were dead weight, dragging him down. His eyes were open, wide with panic, bubbles streaming from his mouth. Deja kicked. Her body remembered. Every stroke she'd ever practiced, every lap she'd ever swum, every moment she'd spent in the water teaching herself to be better, faster, stronger. It all came back in an instant. She reached him in seconds, grabbed him under the arms, kicked hard toward the surface. They broke through together, gasping. I've got you, she said. I've got you. Don't fight me. He was coughing, choking, his body heavy against hers. But he listened. He stopped struggling and let her pull him toward the edge. Hands reached down to help. Someone had finally decided to act instead of film. And together they hauled Dave out of the pool. Deja pulled herself out after him, in water streaming from her ruined dress, her hair plastered to her face. Dave lay on the tile, coughing up water. Deja knelt beside him, her hand on his back. "Breathe," she said. "You're okay. You're okay." He looked up at her, water dripping from his face, his eyes red and wild. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Deja became aware of the crowd, the murmuring. The phones still pointed at them. Something hot and unfamiliar rose in her chest. Anger. Real anger. She stood up. "Put your phones down." Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. The murmuring stopped. People stared at her. This soaking wet woman in a ruined dress, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing. "What is wrong with you?" She looked around at the crowd, at the phones, at the faces frozen in shock. "A man almost drowned and you filmed it? You stood there and filmed?" "Ma'am," someone started. "Don't ma'am me." Deja's voice cracked. "He could have died. He was drowning and you watched. You watched and you recorded. What were you going to do, post it? Show your friends? Look at the cripple falling in the pool. How funny, how sad." Silence. Absolute silence. "Delete it," Deja said. Her voice was shaking now, but she didn't stop. "Delete all of it, every video, every photo, right now." Nobody moved. "I said delete it." A few people, the ones nearest to her, the ones who could see her face clearly, started lowering their phones, started pressing buttons. But others in the back were already slipping away, and Deja knew, she knew, that not everyone would listen. It didn't matter. She'd said what needed to be said. She turned back to Dave. And he was sitting up now, supported by two waiters who had finally arrived to help. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. "We're leaving," she said. He didn't argue. The car ride home was silent. Dave sat beside her in the back of the limousine, wrapped in a towel their host had provided, his wet clothes soaking into the leather seats. Deja sat opposite him, also wrapped in a towel, hair still dripping, her arms wrapped around herself. Neither of them spoke for the first 10 minutes. Then Dave said quietly, "You saved my life." Deja looked out the window. "You were drowning. I know how to swim." "That's not—" He stopped, started again. "You didn't hesitate. Everyone else just stood there, and you just dove, without thinking." "I was thinking," Deja said. "And I was thinking that you were drowning and someone needed to get you out. Most people wouldn't have—" "Then most people are wrong." Silence again. Then Dave laughed. A real laugh, wet and ragged, but real. And Deja looked at him in surprise. "You yelled at them," he said. "You yelled at a room full of the richest, most powerful people in the city to delete their videos. They were being cruel. They were being human. Cruelty is what humans do. Then humans should do better." Dave stared at her. The streetlights passed over his face, illuminating him in flashes. His wet hair, his sharp cheekbones, his eyes that were looking at her like she was something he'd never seen before. "You're incredible," he said softly. "You know that, right? You're absolutely incredible." Deja felt that flutter again, that warmth, like it spread through her chest, down her arms, into her fingers. She didn't know what to do with it. "I'm just me," she said. "Yeah." Dave smiled. That real smile, the one she'd seen only once before, the one that transformed his whole face. That's what makes it incredible. He reached across the space between them. His hand found hers. It was warm despite the wet clothes, despite the cold air conditioning. His fingers curled around hers and held on. Not tight, not demanding, just present, connected. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saving me, for yelling at them, for being you." Deja looked down at their joined hands. She should pull away. This was confusing. This was too much. She didn't understand what was happening or what it meant or what she was supposed to do next. But her hand didn't pull away. It stayed. But that night, Deja lay on the floor of her bedroom and stared at the ceiling. She couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the evening. The dive, the rescue, the anger, the car. Dave's hand in hers. Dave's smile. Dave's eyes looking at her like she was something precious. Her chest felt strange, tight and loose at the same time. Her heart kept beating too fast, and when she thought about his face, it beat even faster. She didn't understand. She'd never felt this way before. Not about anyone. Was she sick? Was something wrong with her? She pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her heartbeat. Dave, she thought, and it sped up again. This was a problem. This was definitely a problem. The video went viral by morning. Deja didn't understand social media, but Maria explained it to her while helping her get dressed. As everyone's talking about it, ma'am. Mystery woman saves paralyzed heir. It's everywhere. Millions of views. I asked them to delete it. Maria's face was sympathetic. Some did, but someone in the back got the whole thing. Your dive, the rescue, you yelling at everyone. It's all there. Deja's stomach dropped. They're watching Dave drown? For entertainment? They're watching you save him, ma'am, and yell at everyone for being horrible. Maria smiled slightly. The comments are very positive. About you, I mean. People are calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I just know how to swim. Well, the internet disagrees. Over the next few days, everything changed. Dave looked at her differently. Not with the irritation or dismissiveness of before, but with something softer. Something warmer. He found excuses to be in the same room as her. Asked her questions about her swimming, about her childhood, about her father. And Deja found herself wanting to answer. This was also confusing. She'd never wanted to talk to people before. Conversations were exhausting. All those hidden meanings and social rules and expectations. But with Dave, it felt easier. He said what he meant. He listened when she talked. He didn't seem to mind when she answered questions literally or missed social cues. You're different, she told him one evening when they were sitting in the library together. He was reading. She was counting the spines on the nearest bookshelf. From other people. Different how? You don't make me tired. He looked up from his book. Is that a good thing? I think so. I'm not sure. And I've never met anyone who doesn't make me tired before. Dave smiled. That smile. The one that made her chest flutter. Well, he said, you don't make me tired either. So I guess we're even. Mrs. Birch was not happy. Deja saw it in the way Dave's mother looked at her now. Not with the calculating warmth of before, but with something colder, something impatient. It's been over a month, Mrs. Birch said one morning, cornering Deja in the hallway. Her voice was pleasant, but her eyes were not. I was hoping to see some progress by now. Progress? Deja asked. Don't play coy with me, girl. You know exactly what I mean. Mrs. Birch stepped closer. You're not here to be David's friend. You're here to give this family an heir. That's the only reason you're tolerated in this house. The word tolerated stung more than Deja expected. Dave and I agreed to wait, she said. Until we're ready. Ready? Mrs. Birch laughed, an ugly sound, nothing like the polished social laugh she used at parties. This isn't a romance novel, dear. This is a business arrangement, and you are failing to hold up your end. I'm not. Let me make something very clear. Mrs. Birch's voice dropped to a whisper. You are replaceable. Michelle was the original choice. She could still be the choice. I could have this marriage annulled tomorrow and have her in your place by next week. Deja felt cold. Michelle doesn't want to marry Dave. Michelle wants money. Money can be very persuasive. Mrs. Birch smiled, a thin, sharp smile. I suggest you start being more cooperative, before I decide that the original plan was the better one after all. She walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Deja stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding. replaceable, tolerated. The only reason you're here. She thought about the pool, about the water, about the silence underneath the surface where nothing hurt and nothing was confusing. She wanted to go there now, to disappear into the blue and never come out. 3 days later, her father came to visit. Deja didn't know he was coming. She was in the garden, sitting by the outdoor pool, watching the water ripple in the breeze, when Maria appeared. "Ma'am, you have a visitor, a Mr. Richard Holloway." Deja was on her feet before Maria finished speaking. She found him in the front parlor, a room she'd never used because it felt too formal, too stiff. Her father stood awkwardly in the center of it, looking around at the paintings and furniture like he didn't belong. He didn't. Neither did she. "Daddy." He turned. His face broke into a smile, that warm, real smile that was nothing like anyone else's in this house. "Hey, fish stick." She crossed the room in 3 steps and wrapped her arms around him. He hugged her back tightly, his hand coming up to stroke her hair the way he'd done when she was small. "I've missed you," she said into his shoulder. "I've missed you too, sweetheart. Every single day." They sat together on one of the stiff, formal couches. Maria brought tea that neither of them touched. And Deja talked. She told him everything: the mansion, the rules, Mrs. Birch and her demands, the party, the dive, the video, Dave. "Something is wrong with me," she said finally, staring at her untouched tea. "When I'm around him, I feel strange. My chest gets tight. My heart beats too fast. I think about his face even when he's not there." She looked up at her father, desperate for answers. "Am I sick? Is something broken?" Her father's expression was soft, knowing. "Oh, sweetheart," he said. You're not sick. Then what's wrong with me?" "Nothing's wrong with you." He took her hand. "What you're describing, those feelings, that's what it's like when you start to care about someone. Really care about them." Deja frowned. "I don't understand." "You like him, Deja. You might even be starting to love him." "Love?" The word felt foreign in her mouth. "But I don't. I can't. I've never—" "I know." Her father squeezed her hand. "You've never felt this way before. That's why it's so confusing. But it's not bad, sweetheart. It's wonderful. It means your heart is opening up to someone." "But how do I know it's real? How do I know I'm not just confused?" "You won't know. Not for sure. Not right away." He smiled sadly. "Love isn't like swimming, fish stick. There's no perfect technique, no pattern to follow. You just have to feel your way through it." Deja shook her head. "That sounds terrifying." "It is. It absolutely is." Her father's eyes were wet. "But it's also the best thing in the world. When you find the right person, someone who sees you for exactly who you are and loves you anyway. There's nothing like it." Deja thought about Dave, about his smile, about his hand in hers in the car, about the way he looked at her like she was something incredible. "He says I'm incredible," she said quietly. "He says I don't make him tired. He sounds like a smart man. I don't know if I can trust him. His mother says I'm replaceable. She says Michelle could take my place tomorrow." Her father's expression hardened. "His mother doesn't decide how he feels. Only he can do that. And from what you've told me, it sounds like he's starting to feel something too. But what if he's pretending? What if this is all just another way to get what his mother wants?" "That's a fair question." Her father leaned forward. "Here's what I think. You watch him. You see how he treats you when no one else is around. You see whether his actions match his words. And you trust yourself. You're smarter than anyone gives you credit for, Deja. You always have been." "Mom says I'm slow." "Your mother," her father said firmly, "is wrong about a lot of things. You are not slow. You are different. And different is not less. Different is just different." Deja felt tears prickle at her eyes. "I miss you, Daddy. I miss you so much." "I know, sweetheart. I miss you too." He pulled her into another hug. But I'm here now, and I'll always be close, no matter what happens. After her father left, Deja went to the indoor pool. She swam until her arms ached, until her lungs burned, until her mind finally went quiet. When she pulled herself out of the water, Dave was there. He was sitting in his wheelchair at the edge of the pool, watching her with that soft expression he got sometimes. She hadn't heard him arrive. "How long have you been there?" she asked. "Long enough to see you do about 60 laps without stopping?" He shook his head. "You're incredible. You know that, right?" That word again. Incredible. She felt the flutter in her chest, the warmth. "My dad came to visit," she said. "I know. I saw him leaving." Dave hesitated. "Did you tell him about everything?" "Yes." "Including me?" "Yes." "And? What did he say?" Deja looked at him, at his beautiful face, at his uncertain eyes, at this complicated, broken, surprising man who had somehow become the center of her confusion. "He said I should watch you," she said, "to see if your actions match your words." Dave nodded slowly. "That's fair." "He said I should trust myself." "Also fair." "He said..." She hesitated. "He said I might be starting to love you." The words hung in the air between them. Dave's expression shifted, surprise, then something else, something vulnerable, something hopeful. "Do you?" he asked quietly. "Love me?" "I don't know," Deja admitted. "I've never loved anyone before. Not like this. I don't know what it's supposed to feel like." "What does it feel like, right now?" Deja pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her heartbeat. "Scary," she said. "Confusing. I'd like falling into water but not knowing if I'll be able to swim." "That sounds about right." Dave smiled. Not his charming smile, not his public smile, but something smaller and more real. "I don't know what I'm doing either, Deja, but I know that I think about you all the time. I know that when you're not around, I wonder where you are. I know that when you dived into that pool and saved me, I felt something I haven't felt in a long time." "What?" "Hope." His voice cracked slightly. "I felt hope, for the first time since the accident." Deja stared at him. She wanted to believe him. She wanted it so badly. But Mrs. Birch's words echoed in her mind, replaceable, tolerated, the only reason you're here. And she couldn't make them go away. "I need time," she said finally, "to watch you. I could to see if you mean it. I'll give you all the time you need. And if I decide I can't trust you, then I'll have no one to blame but myself." He reached out his hand. "But I'm going to try, Deja, every day. I'm going to try to deserve you." She looked at his hand, then at his face, then back at his hand. Slowly, carefully, she took it.
Feels like
His fingers curled around
her.
hers.
Something
Warm,
truly
steady,
special.
present. "Okay," she said. "It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't a promise. It was just a small word. Okay. But it was the beginning of something." They stayed like that for a long time, hand in hand by the pool, while the water settled into stillness around them. Neither of them knew it then, but this was the moment everything changed. Not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with a simple okay and two hands choosing to hold on. But Mrs. Shocker Birch isn't finished. Michelle is about to worm her way in, and the world is about to discover that the mystery woman from the viral video is hiding a talent that would shake the world. Comment protect this couple if you're rooting for them. The enemies are about to make their move. The package arrived on a Tuesday morning. Deja was in the library, counting the books on the third shelf from the top, 214, when Maria appeared in the doorway. Maria had become something like a friend over the past weeks, or as close to a friend as Deja had ever had. She was the one staff member who didn't look at Deja with pity or confusion. She just treated her like a person. "Ma'am, a delivery for you. Mr. Birch asked that you open it in the indoor pool room." Deja frowned. "Why the pool room?" "He didn't say..." "Ma'am." Maria's expression was carefully neutral, but there was something in her eyes. A warmth, maybe. almost like excitement. He just asked that you come right away. Deja set down the book she'd been pretending to read and followed Maria through the maze of hallways. When she reached the pool room, she stopped in the doorway. Dave was there, sitting in his wheelchair by the water's edge. But he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him. Tall, athletic, with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of posture that suggested a lifetime of discipline. She wore a tracksuit with an Olympic logo on the chest, and when she turned to look at Deja, her gaze was sharp and assessing. Deja blinked at her. The face was familiar, but she wasn't sure they'd crossed paths before. "Deja," Dave said, and his voice had that nervous quality she'd started to recognize, the one that meant he wasn't sure how she would react. "I want you to meet someone. This is Coach Vivian Torres." The name hit Deja like a physical force. Vivian Torres, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, former world record holder in the 400-meter freestyle, considered one of the greatest swimming coaches alive. Deja had a poster of her on the wall of her basement bedroom back home. "I don't understand," Deja said. "I've been watching your times," Dave said. "Every morning when you swim, I've been timing you. I hope that's not... I wasn't trying to spy, I just..." He took a breath. "Deja, you're fast, really fast. Faster than you have any right to be for someone who hasn't trained competitively in 10 years. Coach Torres stepped forward. "He sent me your footage. The security cameras by the pool. He had his people compile it into a highlight reel." Her voice was brisk, no nonsense. "I almost didn't come. I'm retired from active coaching. But then I watched you swim." Deja's heart was pounding. And you're raw, unpolished. Your technique has gaps. Self-taught swimmers always do." Coach Torres paused. "But your instincts are extraordinary. Your feel for the water is something that can't be taught. I've trained Olympians who would kill for your natural proprioception." Deja didn't know what proprioception meant, but she understood the tone. This wasn't pity or charity. This was respect. "I don't understand," she said again, looking at Dave. "Why would you do this?" "Because you deserve it." His voice was simple, direct. "You saved my life. You believed in me when I'd given up on myself. And you've been swimming alone in that pool every morning like it's the only place you feel safe." He paused. "I wanted to give you something that was yours. Something your mother couldn't take away. Something that shows the world what I already know. That you're extraordinary." Deja felt tears prickling at her eyes. She blinked hard, trying to push them back. "I can't accept this," she whispered. "It's too much." "It's not enough," he said. "Nothing would ever be enough. But it's a start." Coach Torres cleared her throat. "I don't mean to interrupt what is clearly a moment, but I have a schedule to maintain. So, Ms. Holloway? Or is it Mrs. Birch now? What do you say? Are you ready to see what you're really capable of?" Deja looked at the pool. The water gleamed under the lights, calm and inviting. Her whole life she had been told what she couldn't do. Too slow, too strange, too flat-chested, too awkward, too much, and not enough at the same time. But in the water, none of that mattered. In the water, she was exactly right. "Yes," she said, "I'm ready." Coach Vivian Torres is in the building. Drop a comment with your best swimming emoji if you're ready to watch Deja become a champion. And drop all the hearts you can for this video if you think Dave just earned major husband points. Now back to the story. Training with Coach Torres was nothing like swimming alone. It was brutal, exhausting, exhilarating. Every morning at 5 a.m., Deja was in the pool. Coach Torres stood at the edge with a stopwatch and a clipboard, barking instructions in a voice that carried across the water like a drill sergeant. "Muscles, your left arm is dropping. Keep your elbow high. You're breathing too often. Every 4 strokes, not 3. Faster on the turn. You're losing half a second every lap." Deja listened, adjusted, tried again, and again, and again. Meanwhile, Dave began physical therapy. He hadn't told her he was doing it. She found out when she came upstairs early one morning and heard sounds coming from the east wing. Grunting, straining, a soft voice encouraging. She peeked through the doorway and saw Dave lying on a padded table, a gentle-faced man in his 50s working his legs through a series of movements. Dave's face was twisted with effort and frustration. His legs weren't moving on their own. Not yet, but he was trying. Deja slipped away before he saw her. She didn't want to embarrass him. But that night, when they sat together in the library, she reached over and took his hand. "I saw you this morning," she said. "With the physical therapist." Dave's face flushed. "I didn't want you to know. Not until there was something to show." "Why?" "Because—" He stopped, started again. "Because what if it doesn't work? What if I try and nothing happens? I didn't want you to watch me fail." "You pushed me to swim," Deja said. "You told me I could make the Olympics. How is this different?" "It's different because—" He laughed bitterly. "Because I'm scared, Deja. I'm terrified. For a year I told myself I was done, that this chair was my life now. It was easier to accept that than to hope for something better. And now? And now I have something to hope for." He squeezed her hand. "You. This. Whatever this is between us. I want to be able to stand next to you, to walk with you, to—" His voice cracked. "I want to be whole again. For you." "You're already whole," Deja said. "The chair doesn't change that." "I know, but I still want to try." Deja leaned forward and kissed him gently on the forehead the way her dad did sometimes to calm her. "Then try," she said. "And let me watch, even if you fail, even if nothing happens. I want to be there." Dave looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay," he said. "Together." Progress was slow, painfully slow. Some days Dave couldn't feel anything below his waist. Other days he felt tingling. Strange sensations that Will, the physical therapist, said were encouraging signs. One day, 3 weeks into therapy, his toe twitched. His toe. It wasn't much. It wasn't walking. It wasn't standing. It was just a toe. But when it happened, Dave looked at Deja with tears streaming down his face, and she understood that it was everything. "You did this," he said. "You made me try." "You did this," she corrected. "I just believed you could." "Y'all." His toe moved. "I know that sounds small, but after a year of nothing? That's huge. Drop a keep going Dave in the comments if you're rooting for him. But wait, I need to tell you about what's happening with the family business. Because Dave isn't just fighting for his legs. He's fighting for his whole life. The Birch family business was called Birch Holdings. Real estate development, commercial properties, luxury residential, hotels, shopping centers, a portfolio worth billions, spanning 3 continents. Before his accident, Dave had been next in line. He'd worked his way up from junior positions, learned every aspect of the business, earned the respect of the board through competence, not just bloodline. At 27, he was 6 months away from being named CEO. Then the car accident happened. His mother had stepped in temporarily, just until Dave recovered, just until he was ready. But the temporary had become permanent. In the 14 months since the accident, Mrs. Birch had consolidated control. Board meetings happened without Dave's input. Decisions were made without his consultation. When he tried to work remotely, his mother intercepted calls and emails, telling everyone he was still recovering and not ready for the stress. She was slowly erasing him from his own company. Dave had let it happen. In the fog of depression and physical pain that followed the accident, he hadn't had the energy to fight. It was easier to let his mother handle things, easier to retreat into his room and pretend the outside world didn't exist. But now things were different. Now he had something to fight for. "I want back in," he told his mother one morning over breakfast. "I'm ready to return to Birch Holdings." Mrs. Birch's smile was thin. "Darling, you're still recovering. The doctors said I could work remotely months ago. You're the one who's been keeping me out." "That's not fair. I've been protecting you from stress. You've been protecting yourself from competition." Dave's voice was hard. "I'm not stupid, Mother. I know what you've been doing, and it ends now." His mother's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe. Or calculation. David, this isn't the time to discuss business matters, especially not with... Her eyes darted to Deja, who was eating her breakfast quietly at the other end of the table. Distractions present. Deja isn't a distraction. She's my wife. Is she? Because it seems to me that she's doing very little wifely duty. Mrs. Birch's voice turned cold. No grandchildren, little social appearances, nothing but swimming and encouraging you to pursue pointless physical therapy when you should be accepting your limitations. My limitations? Dave laughed, an ugly sound. My limitations are the ones you've put on me. You want me helpless. You want me dependent. That way, you stay in control. That's not... I'm done with this conversation. Dave wheeled himself back from the table. I'll be in touch with the board directly. Neil, and if you try to interfere again, I'll have my lawyers review exactly what you've been doing with company funds while I've been recovering. He wheeled out of the room without looking back. Deja watched him go, then looked at Mrs. Birch. The older woman's face was a mask of controlled fury. This is your doing, Mrs. Birch said quietly. You've poisoned him against me. I haven't done anything, Deja said, except believe in him. That's exactly what I mean. Oh, snap. Mrs. Birch is not just a baby-obsessed grandmother. She's been stealing Dave's company from him this whole time. Drop a "take it back, Dave" in the comments if you're ready for him to reclaim his throne. But hold on, because Mrs. Birch isn't going down without a fight, and she's about to bring in reinforcements. 2 days later, Maria knocked on Deja's door. Ma'am, I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's something you should know. Deja set down the book on swimming techniques she'd been reading. Maria's face was troubled, more troubled than she'd ever seen her. What is it? Maria glanced down the hallway, then stepped inside and closed the door. Mrs. Birch Sr. has invited guests, she said quietly. Your mother and sister. They arrived an hour ago. They're in the small parlor with Mrs. Birch now. Deja felt her stomach drop. My mother is here? And Michelle? Yes, ma'am. I overheard part of their conversation. Maria's hands twisted together nervously. I'm not supposed to eavesdrop, but I was worried. About you. What did they say? Maria hesitated. Then, in a rush, they're planning to have your marriage annulled. Your mother wants to swap you for Michelle. She says Michelle is ready now and understands the opportunity. Mrs. Birch Sr. is considering it. She's very unhappy with how things have been going. Deja felt cold. They can't do that. Dave wouldn't agree. They're not planning to ask him, ma'am. They're talking about... Maria swallowed. Mental incompetence. Your mother said you're not exactly normal, and that a good lawyer could find grounds. Mental incompetence. The words hit Deja like a punch to the chest. Her own mother. Her own mother was planning to have her declared mentally unfit, to throw her away like garbage and replace her with Michelle. Does Dave know? Deja asked. Her voice sounded strange, distant. I'm about to tell him, ma'am. I came to you first because I thought you should hear it from someone who cares about you, before everything gets complicated. Deja looked at Maria, really looked at her. This woman who had been kind from the first day, who brought extra snacks when she knew Deja forgot to eat, who had never once treated her like she was strange or broken. Thank you, Maria, Deja said. You're a good friend. Maria's eyes widened slightly. Surprise, and then warmth. I try, ma'am. Now, let's go find Mr. Birch. They found Dave in his study, reviewing documents related to Birch Holdings. When Maria told him what she'd overheard, his expression went through several stages. Confusion, then disbelief, then cold, hard fury. She invited them here, he said slowly. My mother invited them into this house, behind my back. Yes, sir. To plot against my wife. Then my own home. Yes, sir. Dave was silent for a long moment. Then he reached for his phone. What are you doing? Deja asked. Calling security. I want them escorted off the property. Wait. Deja put her hand on his arm. If you throw them out now, they'll just regroup and try again somewhere else. Somewhere we can't see them. Maybe it's better to know what they're planning. Dave looked at her. You want to spy on them? I want to confront them. All of them. Together. So there are no more secrets. No more plotting behind closed doors. Dave considered this. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, but I'm going with you. And if anyone says a single disrespectful thing to you, they're out. All of them, including my mother. The small parlor was warm and golden with afternoon light. Mrs. Birch sat in a high-backed chair like a queen holding court. Across from her, Deja's mother Eleanor sat with perfect posture and a satisfied smile. Michelle was perched on a nearby settee, examining her manicure with studied boredom. They all looked up when Dave wheeled in, Deja walking beside him. David. Mrs. Birch's surprise was poorly concealed. I didn't realize you'd be joining us. I'm sure you didn't. Dave's voice was ice. Given that you invited my mother-in-law and sister-in-law into my home without telling me. Your home? Mrs. Birch's eyebrow arched. Last I checked, this was the family estate. My home as much as yours. That's about to change. Dave positioned himself in the center of the room, blocking the only exit. But first, I understand you've been having an interesting conversation about annulments and mental incompetence. Would you like to share with the class? Eleanor's face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly. David, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding. Dave cut her off. I know exactly what you're planning. You want to declare my wife mentally unfit, annul our marriage, and swap her for Michelle. How close am I? Silence. Michelle stopped examining her nails. Mrs. Birch's smile turned brittle. Eleanor's composure cracked, just for a moment. We're concerned, Mrs. Birch said finally. That's all. Deja is a sweet girl, but she's clearly not equipped for the demands of this family. She's odd, difficult. She's been here for over 2 months and still can't remember which fork is for salad. I know which fork is for salad, Deja said quietly. Yeah, I just don't understand why it matters. That's exactly my point. She doesn't understand. She never will. Mrs. Birch turned to Dave. Darling, I only want what's best for you. Michelle is sophisticated, charming. She knows how to navigate high society. She would be an asset to this family. Michelle left me. Dave's voice was flat. When I was in the hospital wondering if I'd ever walk again, she looked at me like I was damaged goods and walked out the door. And now that I'm starting to recover, now that there's something to gain, she wants back in? I made a mistake, Michelle said, finally speaking. Her voice was honey-sweet. I was scared, David. The accident was such a shock. But I've had time to think, and I realize now that I should have stood by you. Let me make it up to you. No. David, I said no. Dave reached back and took Deja's hand, pulling her forward so she stood beside him. This is my wife. I chose her. Not because of any arrangement or business deal, because she is the only person who has ever made me feel like I'm worth something since my accident. She's defective, Eleanor spat, finally dropping all pretense of politeness. She always has been. Slow, strange, an embarrassment. Michelle was supposed to be the one. Michelle was supposed to secure this family's future, not... That's enough. The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Richard Holloway stood there, still in his work clothes. A janitor's uniform, Deja realized with a pang. He'd been working as a janitor somewhere, probably multiple jobs just to survive. On Richard, Eleanor's face twisted. What are you doing here? I came to see my daughter. Richard walked into the room slowly, his eyes never leaving Eleanor. And I heard what you were saying about her. What you've been saying about her for 24 years. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me more than anyone. Richard's voice shook, but he didn't stop. She's my daughter. My brilliant, extraordinary daughter. And you've spent her entire life trying to convince her she's broken. She is broken. No. Richard's voice rose. She's not broken. She's different. And different isn't less. It's just different. She sees the world in ways we can't. She feels things more deeply than we understand. And instead of celebrating that, instead of nurturing it, you crushed it. You hid her away. You made her believe she wasn't good enough. Tears were streaming down his face now. I let you do it, he continued. That's my shame. I was too weak, too afraid to stand up to you. But I'm not afraid anymore. Because my daughter found someone who sees her, really sees her, and I'm not going to let you take that away. Fine words from a man who can't even support himself. Eleanor's voice was contemptuous. Where will you go if I decide to kick you out, Richard? You have nothing. No money, no home, no prospects. You need me. No, Dave said. He doesn't. Everyone looked at him. I own a penthouse downtown, Dave said. I bought it years ago, before the accident. My mother insisted I stay here in the family home after everything happened. Said I needed looking after, said it wasn't safe for me to be alone. But the real reason was control. She wanted to keep me where she could manage me. He looked at his mother, and there was something final in his gaze. I'm done being managed. I'm moving out, tonight. And Deja is coming with me. He turned to Richard. Mr. Holloway, Richard, you stood up for my wife. You've been standing up for her in quiet ways her whole life, even when it cost you. I would be honored if you'd come with us. We have room. And frankly, I could use a father figure who isn't trying to control my every move. Richard's mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked at Deja. Fish stick? Would this be okay? Deja felt tears spilling down her cheeks. Yes, Daddy, yes. Then, Richard straightened his spine. For the first time in years, he looked like the swimmer he'd once been. Strong, determined, ready to race. Then I accept. Thank you, David. Call me Dave. Eleanor stood abruptly. You can't do this. Richard, if you leave, You'll what? Richard turned to face her. Stop paying for my mother's care? That threat only works if I have no other options. I have options now. I'll have you declared mentally incompetent too. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Try it. Dave's voice was deadly calm. Try it and see what happens. I have lawyers you've never heard of, resources you can't imagine, and I will bury anyone who tries to hurt my wife or her father. He turned to his mother. That includes you, Mother. This is your one warning. Stay out of my marriage. Stay out of my business. Stay out of my life, or I will make sure you regret it. Mrs. Birch's face was pale with fury. You wouldn't dare. I would. I'm a Birch, remember? We're very good at being ruthless when we need to be. He smiled coldly. You taught me that. He wheeled toward the door. Maria will help you pack what you need, he said to Deja and Richard. We leave in 2 hours. He did that. Dave just told his controlling mother off, gave Deja's dad a home, and announced he's taking his wife and leaving. Drop a high five in the comments if you're standing up and applauding right now, and smash that like button because this couple is winning. 2 hours later, a car pulled away from the Birch estate. Dave sat in the back, his wheelchair folded in the trunk. Deja sat beside him, her hand in his. And in the front passenger seat, Richard Holloway watched the mansion disappear in the side mirror. I can't believe that just happened, Richard said quietly. Neither can I, Deja admitted. Believe it, Dave said. It happened, and it's not going to unhappen. This is our life now, together. He squeezed Deja's hand. The penthouse has 4 bedrooms, he continued. More than enough space. There's a concierge service, a gym, and... He glanced at Deja. A rooftop pool. Not as big as the one at the estate, but Coach Torres says it's Olympic regulation length. Good enough to train in. You planned this, Deja realized. The pool. You already knew we might need to leave. I hoped we wouldn't, but yes, I planned for it, just in case. Richard turned around in his seat to look at them. Dave, son, I don't know how to thank you. You've given me my life back, given me my daughter back. You never lost her, Dave said. She was always yours. She just needed someone to help her find her way home. Deja leaned her head against Dave's shoulder. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 6 months later, the morning sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, casting golden rectangles across the polished hardwood floors. Deja stood at the kitchen counter, eating her pre-training breakfast. Oatmeal with bananas, exactly as Coach Torres prescribed. She ate slowly, counting each bite, letting the familiar rhythm calm her nerves. Today was the day. Olympic trials, women's 400-meter freestyle. After 6 months of brutal training, early mornings, aching muscles, and pushing her body beyond anything she'd ever imagined, it all came down to today. You're going to wear a hole in that countertop. She turned. Dave stood in the doorway. Stood. He was leaning on a cane, a sleek black thing he'd picked out himself, saying if he had to use one, it might as well look good. But he was standing, on his own 2 feet, something that had seemed impossible 6 months ago. The journey had been brutal. After the toe twitch had come weeks of nothing. Then a flicker in his ankle. Then, 3 months in, he'd managed to bear weight on his legs for exactly 4 seconds before collapsing. He'd cried that day, tears of frustration and hope mixed together. But he'd kept trying. Now he could walk short distances with the cane. Stand for several minutes at a time. The doctor said he might never run as fast as he used to again, if ever. I might always need some support, but they also said they'd never seen anyone work harder or progress faster. I'm not wearing a hole in anything, Deja said. I'm eating oatmeal. You're eating oatmeal while staring at nothing and counting under your breath. Dave made his way carefully across the kitchen, his movements slow but steady. That means you're nervous. I'm not nervous. Deja, you've counted those banana slices 6 times. She looked down at her bowl. He was right. She had. Okay, she admitted. Maybe I'm a little nervous. Dave reached her and set his cane against the counter, using the surface to balance himself. Then he took her hands. You're going to be amazing, he said. You've trained harder than anyone. Your times are better than they've ever been. Coach Torres says you're peaking at exactly the right moment. What if I choke? What if my legs don't work? What if you win? Deja blinked. What? You keep listing all the things that could go wrong. What if something goes right instead? Dave squeezed her hands. What if you get in that water and do exactly what you've been doing every single day for 6 months? What if your body remembers everything it's been trained to do? What if you touch that wall and look up and see your time and realize you just qualified for the Olympics? Deja felt tears prickle at her eyes. That seems statistically unlikely. So did my walking. So did us falling in love. So did everything that's happened since you told me my zipper was open. He smiled. That real smile, the one that still made her chest flutter. Sometimes the unlikely thing happens, Deja. Sometimes the underdog wins. And today, I think the unlikely thing is going to happen for you. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. I love you, she said. I love you too. He kissed her gently. Now finish your oatmeal. We have a gold medal to win. The Olympic Training Center was chaos. Swimmers everywhere. Coaches barking instructions. Media personnel with cameras and microphones. The sharp scent of chlorine cutting through the air. The echo of voices bouncing off the high ceilings. Deja stood in the competitors' area trying to focus. Her racing suit felt tight against her skin. A good tight, the kind that meant speed. Her goggles hung around her neck. Her cap was already on, pressing her hair flat against her skull. Her gym bag sat on the bench beside her. Inside were the usual supplies, extra goggles, a towel, her phone, and her muscle relief spray. She always used it before big races, a quick spritz on her calves and thighs to keep them loose. Coach Torres was reviewing last-minute strategies, but Deja's attention drifted to the stands. She found Dave and Richard easily. 3rd row, center section. Dave in an aisle seat for easier navigation with his cane. Richard wearing his Swim Dad t-shirt and holding a sign that said, Go Fish Stick, in uneven handwriting. Both were waving at her. She waved back, feeling some of the tension ease from her shoulders. "Focus," Coach Torres said, snapping her fingers. "You can wave at your family later. Right now, you need to warm up. Go do your stretches, use your spray, and get your body ready." Deja nodded and reached for her bag, and that's where everything went wrong. She didn't notice anything wrong at first. The spray bottle looked the same. Same shape, same label, same position in her bag where she always kept it. She shook it twice, her ritual, and sprayed it across her right calf. The pain was immediate. It started as heat. Intense, searing heat, like someone had pressed a hot iron against her skin. Then it became something worse. Burning, melting. The sensation of her flesh being eaten away. Deja screamed. The bottle fell from her hands, clattering to the floor. She stumbled backward, crashing into the bench, her leg buckling beneath her. Coach Torres was at her side in seconds. "Deja, what happened? What?" She looked down at Deja's leg and her face went white. "Oh my God, medic! We need a medic now." The skin on Deja's calf was red and raw, already starting to blister. Patches of it were peeling away like wet paper, revealing angry pink flesh beneath. The chemical smell was acrid, unmistakable. Something caustic, something that was never meant to touch human skin. "It burns," Deja gasped, tears streaming down her face. "It burns, it burns, it... Don't touch it." Coach Torres held her down as she tried to claw at her own leg. "Someone get water. Get this off her now." Medical personnel swarmed around her. Someone poured a bottle of water over her leg while someone else called for a stretcher. The pain was blinding, all-consuming, the worst thing Deja had ever felt in her life. Through the chaos, she heard shouting, familiar voices. "Deja!" Dave was pushing through the crowd, his cane forgotten, Richard right behind him. Security tried to stop them, but Dave shoved past, his face wild with fear. "Deja! What happened? What?" He saw her leg and stopped dead. "Who did this?" His voice was quiet, deadly. "Who did this?" "Oh no, 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 no. Someone sabotaged her spray." Comment, "Protect Deja. If you're screaming at your screen right now." But wait, it gets worse, because we're about to find out who did this. Security found them in the parking garage. Eleanor and Michelle were trying to get to their rental car when they were stopped by two officers. Eleanor's face was calm. Too calm. The practiced composure of someone who thought they'd gotten away with it. Michelle looked nervous. Her hands were shaking. She kept glancing back toward the building. "Is there a problem, officers?" Eleanor asked smoothly. "We need you to come with us, ma'am. There's been an incident involving your daughter." "My daughter?" Eleanor's eyebrows rose in perfect surprise. "What kind of incident?" "She's been injured. Someone tampered with her equipment." "How terrible. I hope she's all right." But the officer was watching Michelle, not Eleanor. Watching the way her face crumpled, the way her hands flew to her mouth, the way her eyes filled with tears of guilt rather than concern. "It wasn't supposed to hurt her that badly," Michelle blurted. "It was just supposed to sting a little. Make her uncomfortable so she couldn't race. We didn't know it would." "Michelle!" Eleanor's composure finally cracked. "Shut your mouth. Ma'am, you're both under arrest." The medical bay was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines. Deja lay on a gurney, her leg bandaged, an IV drip feeding painkillers into her arm. The doctors had done what they could. Cleaned the wound, treated the chemical burns, wrapped everything in sterile gauze. Second-degree burns, they said. Some scarring likely. No permanent damage to the muscle, thank God. She wouldn't be swimming today. At least, that's what everyone kept telling her. Dave sat beside her, holding her hand. Richard stood at the foot of the bed, his face gray with shock. Coach Torres paced back and forth, alternating between fury and devastation. "The police have them in custody," Coach Torres said for the third time. "Your mother and sister. They found the original spray bottle in their hotel room, and the receipt for the chemicals they used to make. Whatever that was. Hydrochloric acid mixed with capsaicin extract," the doctor said grimly. "Military-grade irritant combined with a corrosive agent. Whoever made that knew exactly what they were doing." "Why?" Deja's voice was small, confused. Why would they do this? Nobody answered. Then Dave's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his jaw tightened. "They're asking if you want to see them," he said quietly. "Before they're processed. The police said you have the right to face your accusers if you want." Deja stared at the ceiling for a long moment. "Yes," she said finally. "I want to see them." "Deja, you don't have to. I want to." She turned her head to look at Dave. "I need to understand. I need to know why." Dave searched her face for a moment. Then he nodded. Okay, I'll have them brought here." They looked smaller in handcuffs. Eleanor's perfect composure was gone. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her designer clothes wrinkled from the holding cell. Michelle looked even worse. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, her whole body trembling. Two officers flanked them, but Deja barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on her mother's face. "Why?" The word hung in the air. Eleanor said nothing. Her jaw was tight, her eyes fixed on a point somewhere over Deja's shoulder. "Why?" Deja asked again, her voice cracking. "I don't understand. I've never understood. What did I do wrong? Was it because I was slow? Because I was different? Because I wasn't pretty like Michelle?" Still nothing. "You're my mother." Tears spilled down Deja's cheeks. "You were supposed to love me. Like you were supposed to protect me. Instead, you hid me away. You made me feel broken. You tried to sell me to a stranger for money. And when that didn't work out the way you wanted, She gestured at her bandaged leg. "You did this." "It wasn't supposed to be this bad," Michelle whispered. "It was just supposed to make you scratch, make you uncomfortable. We didn't know." "You didn't know what? That pouring acid on someone's skin would hurt?" Michelle flinched. Deja turned back to Eleanor. "Answer me, please. Just once in my life, answer me honestly." Her voice broke on the last word. "How could you despise your own child just because she didn't turn out the way you wished? How could you hate me this much?" Eleanor's composure crumbled completely. Her expression was ugly, raw, eyes wild with something between fury and anguish, lips pulled back, every line of her face revealing the monster underneath. "You want to know why?" Eleanor's voice was quiet at first, then building. "You really want to know?" "Yes," Deja said. "I've been asking my whole life." "Because you ruined everything." Eleanor's words came out jagged, broken. "From the moment you were born, you ruined everything." Deja stared at her mother, waiting. "I never wanted children," Eleanor said, her voice hollow now. "Not really, but Richard did. Richard wanted a family, a legacy, someone to carry on his precious swimming dream since his knee ruined his own." She laughed bitterly. "So I got pregnant, and I told myself it would be fine. I would have a baby, and it would be beautiful and perfect and easy, and Richard would be happy, and I could go back to my life." Her eyes finally met Deja's. "But then you came out, and from the very first day you were wrong." Deja felt Richard stiffen beside her, but she didn't look away from her mother. "You didn't cry like other babies," Eleanor continued, her voice rising. "You didn't smile at me. You didn't want to be held. You would just stare, with those eyes, like you could see right through me, like you were judging me. I was a baby. You made me feel like a failure," Eleanor was shouting now. "Every developmental milestone you missed. Every time the doctors said you weren't progressing normally. Every teacher who called to say you weren't adjusting. Every parent who looked at me with pity. You were proof, constant living proof, that I wasn't good enough. That I couldn't even produce a normal child." She took a shuddering breath. "So I tried again. I thought, maybe I just made a mistake the first time. Maybe if I had another baby, a normal baby, it would fix things. It would prove I wasn't the problem." Understanding dawned on Deja's face. "Michelle. Michelle." Eleanor's voice softened for just a moment, something almost like tenderness flickering across her face before it hardened again. "Beautiful, perfect Michelle." She smiled at me. She reached for me. She cried when I left the room and laughed when I came back. She was everything you weren't. So you gave her everything, Deja said quietly, and gave me nothing. I gave you what you deserved. Eleanor's voice was ice. You took my first chance at motherhood and made it a nightmare. You made me feel incompetent, broken. Every time I looked at you, I saw my own failure staring back at me. That's not, Richard started, but Eleanor cut him off. Don't you dare defend her, Richard. You always defended her. She's special, Eleanor. She just needs more time, Eleanor. She's not slow, she just thinks differently, Eleanor. She mimicked his voice cruelly. You enabled her. You made her think she was worth something when she should have learned her place. Her place? Richard's voice cracked with anger. Yes, her place. In the background, out of sight. Not embarrassing me at every turn with her strange behavior and her flat effect and her inability to be normal? Eleanor's face twisted. But instead, you encouraged her. You taught her to swim. You filled her head with dreams she had no business having. She turned back to Deja. And now look at you. You've somehow stumbled into everything Michelle was supposed to have. The wealthy husband, the mansion, the future. You, the broken one, the defective one, the mistake. You have everything, while my perfect daughter has nothing. Michelle has nothing because Michelle refused to marry a man in a wheelchair, Deja said, her voice steady. She made a choice. She made a reasonable choice, Eleanor screamed. Why should she tie herself to a cripple when she could have anyone? Why should she sacrifice her life for enough? Dave's voice cut through the room like a blade. He had positioned himself between Deja and her mother, his wheelchair a barrier. You're done, he said quietly. You're done speaking. You're done explaining. You're done existing in my wife's presence. I'm her mother. You're nothing to her. Dave's voice was ice. You stopped being her mother the day you decided she was a mistake. Maybe before that. A real mother doesn't do what you've done. A real mother doesn't try to destroy her own child. Eleanor's face contorted with rage, but something in Dave's expression made her step back. Take them away, Dave said to the officers. I'm done listening. As the officers moved to escort them out, Deja spoke one last time. You're wrong about one thing, she said to her mother. Eleanor paused, officers gripping her arms. I'm not broken. I was never broken. My brain just works differently. Deja's voice was calm, almost peaceful. The only thing that was ever broken in our family was you. You were so afraid of imperfection that you couldn't see anything else. You had 2 daughters, and you loved one and hated one, and the only difference between us was that I didn't perform for you the way you wanted. She paused. I feel sorry for you. You could have had 2 daughters who loved you. Instead, you'll die alone, knowing that Michelle only ever wanted your approval and I stopped wanting it years ago. You have nothing. Not because of me. Because of you. Eleanor's face went white. Take them, Dave said again. The officers led them out. Eleanor didn't look back. Michelle did. One last desperate glance over her shoulder at the sister she had helped destroy. Deja didn't return it. That confession was brutal. But Deja handled it like the queen she is. So comment Deja is free if you're proud of how she stood up to her mother. But wait, the story isn't over. Because Deja has one more thing to prove. You're not seriously considering this. Dave's voice was tight with concern. They were back in the medical bay, an hour after Eleanor and Michelle had been taken away. Deja was sitting up now, the painkillers dulling the worst of the pain, and she was asking for her racing suit. The heat starts in 40 minutes, Deja said. I can still make it. Your leg is burned. You can barely walk. I don't walk in the water, I swim. Deja, this is insane. Nobody expects you to race. The officials have already offered you an exemption. You can qualify at the next trials instead. Nobody will think less of you. I'll think less of me. Dave opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He knew that look. That stubborn, immovable Deja look. Coach Torres stepped forward. The doctors say there's no muscle damage. As long as the bandage stays waterproof. You're not helping, Dave said sharply. I'm being realistic. If she wants to swim, she can swim. It'll hurt like hell, but it won't cause permanent damage. It's my choice. Deja swung her legs over the edge of the gurney, wincing as the movement pulled at her bandage. I didn't train for 6 months to sit in a medical bay while other people decide my future. I swam through pain my whole life. The pain of being told I wasn't good enough. This, she gestured at her leg. This is just skin. It heals. Dave was quiet for a long moment. Then he said softly, You're incredible. You know that, all right? You keep saying that because it keeps being true. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. Go swim, fish stick. I'll be in the stands, screaming your name. The crowd went silent when she walked out. Word had spread. Everyone knew what had happened. The sabotage, the arrest, the confrontation. The whole swimming world had been buzzing about it for the past hour. And now here she was, limping toward lane 4, her leg wrapped in waterproof bandages, her face pale but determined. The other swimmers stared. The officials whispered. In the stands, people pulled out their phones. Deja ignored all of it. She stepped onto the block. The surface was rough under her bare feet. Familiar. She looked at the water. You belong here, she told herself. This is your place, and this is where everything makes sense. She pulled her goggles down. The world narrowed to blue and white. The official raised his arm. Take your marks. Deja bent into position. Her legs screamed in protest. She ignored it. The buzzer sounded. She dove. The water swallowed her whole. For one perfect, crystalline moment, everything was silent. No pain, no fear, no mother's voice telling her she was broken. Just her body and the water and the beautiful simplicity of move forward, breathe, move forward, breathe. She surfaced and started stroking. Her leg burned with every kick. The bandage rubbed against the raw skin. The pain was constant, throbbing, impossible to ignore. She ignored it anyway. 50 meters. Turn, push, surface, stroke, 100 meters. She wasn't in the lead. She could feel it. The other swimmers pulling ahead, their uninjured bodies moving faster than hers. It didn't matter. 200 meters. Halfway. The burn was spreading now. Arms, legs, shoulders, chest. Her injured leg was screaming at her to stop, to give up, to let the pain win. She didn't stop. 300 meters. She was falling behind. 3rd place. Maybe 4th. The wall was coming, but it felt so far away. Keep going, keep going, keep going, 400 meters. She touched the wall. For a moment, she just hung there, gasping for air, her whole body trembling with exhaustion and pain. Then she looked up at the scoreboard. Lane 4, Holloway Birch, Deja, 4 minutes, 7.93 seconds. 3rd place, Olympic qualifying time. 3rd place, not 1st, not 2nd. 3rd, but she'd done it. With a burned leg and a broken heart. She'd done it. She'd qualified. And then the sound hit her. The crowd was on their feet. All of them. Every single person in the stadium was standing, cheering, screaming her name. A standing ovation. For 3rd place. Deja stared up at them, overwhelmed, unable to process what was happening. Then she saw Dave. He was standing too, without his cane, gripping the railing, tears streaming down his face. Richard beside him, sobbing openly, his swim dad shirt soaked with tears. They were both pointing at something. She looked at the big screen above the pool. Her face was there, replayed in slow motion. Her dive, her strokes, her determination. And underneath, a caption. Despite sabotage and burns, Deja Holloway Birch qualifies for Olympics in historic show of resilience. She was already going viral. Standing ovation for 3rd place. The whole stadium is on their feet. Comment legend. If Deja just became the most iconic Olympic story ever. And like this video right now, because we're almost at the end and I need to see those view numbers explode. The media frenzy was unlike anything Deja had ever experienced. Reporters mobbed her as she limped out of the pool. Cameras flashed, microphones were shoved in her face. Questions came from every direction. Deja, how does it feel to qualify after being sabotaged? Deja, what do you say to your mother and sister? Deja, are you the most resilient athlete in Olympic history? She didn't know how to answer any of them. The noise was too much, the lights too bright, everything too overwhelming. Then Dave was there, pushing through the crowd with his cane, like security clearing a path. He reached her side and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. No more questions, he said firmly. She needs medical attention. Just one more. I said no. He guided her away, shielding her from the cameras, getting her to safety. In the quiet of the medical bay, away from the chaos, Deja finally let herself breathe. You did it, Dave said softly. I came in third. You came in third with a burned leg after being sabotaged by your own family. That's not third place. That's legendary. She looked at him, at his proud, tearful, beautiful face, and felt something shift in her chest. I want to go home, she said. Okay, I'll have the car brought around. I'm not done. She took his hand. I want to go home. Our home. The penthouse. Our bed. Dave's eyebrows rose slightly. Okay. And I want to make babies. The words came out blunt, direct. Classic Deja. Dave choked on air. You... what? I want to make babies, she repeated calmly. With you. Tonight. I've decided I'm ready. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, confusion, embarrassment, and finally a slow, spreading grin. You're serious. I'm always serious, you know that. Deja, you just raced with a burned leg. You're probably in shock. Maybe we should wait until... I've been waiting my whole life. She looked at him steadily. For someone who sees me. For somewhere I belong. For something that's mine. I found all of that with you. And now I want to build something with you, a family, a real one. Not like... She paused. Not like what I had. Dave's expression softened. He reached out and cupped her face in his hands. Are you sure? I counted the reasons why I should wait. Then I counted the reasons why I shouldn't. The second list was longer. He laughed. That warm, surprised laugh she loved. Only you would make a pro-con list about having children. It was a thorough list. I can show you the spreadsheet. Maybe later. He leaned in and kissed her softly. Let's go home. She said she wants to make babies. Comment about time if you've been waiting for this moment. Now let's see what happens at home. The penthouse was quiet when they arrived. Richard had gone to his own room, tactfully giving them privacy. Maria had left fresh flowers on the kitchen counter and a bottle of champagne in an ice bucket, as if she'd known somehow that tonight was special. But Deja stood in the bedroom doorway, looking at the bed. It was new, bought a few weeks ago to replace the cloudy, too-soft mattress that had come with the penthouse. This one was firm and springy, exactly the way Deja liked it. She'd tested 14 mattresses before choosing this one. Dave had watched her lie on each one, making notes on her phone, and had said nothing except, whatever you want. He always said that. Whatever she wanted. Are you sure about this? Dave asked from behind her. She turned to face him. He was leaning on his cane, watching her with that soft, patient expression he always wore when she was processing something big. Yes, she said. I'm sure. He set down the cane and walked toward her slowly, still careful, still a little unsteady, but walking, moving under his own power, on a miracle she never got tired of watching. He stopped in front of her and reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. You know I love you, right? You've mentioned it, repeatedly. I'm going to keep mentioning it, every day, forever. That seems excessive. That's the plan. He leaned in to kiss her. She stepped back. He blinked, confused. Deja. I changed my mind. You... His face fell. Okay, that's okay. We don't have to do anything you don't want to do. We can wait as long as... I'm playing. She was smiling. actually smiling, her eyes crinkling with mischief, the same expression she'd had when she'd told him his zipper was open that first day. Dave stared at her. "You're playing?" "I read that people do this. They play. Before. It's called flirting or teasing. Like, I'm not sure of the exact terminology." "You're teasing me? Is it working?" Dave's expression shifted. The concern melted away, replaced by something warmer. Something predatory in the best possible way. "Oh," he said softly. "It's working." He took a step toward her. She took a step back. "You'll have to catch me first," she said. And then she ran. The penthouse was not designed for chasing. There were expensive vases on pedestals, glass coffee tables, floor-to-ceiling windows that probably cost more than most cars. One wrong move and something priceless would shatter. Neither of them cared. Deja darted around the couch, her bare feet slapping against the hardwood floors. Her leg throbbed. The bandage was still there, the burn still healing. But the painkillers had dulled the worst of it, and the adrenaline was handling the rest. "You know I'm going to catch you," Dave called, circling the other way. "I didn't do 6 months of physical therapy to lose a foot race to my own wife." "Your cane is by the bed." "I don't need the cane." "Your legs are shaking." "They're shaking because I'm excited. Very different." She laughed, a real laugh, bright and surprised, and ducked around the kitchen island. Dave followed. He was slower than her, his movements still careful, but there was determination in his face. And something else. Something she'd never seen before. Joy. Pure, unfiltered joy. "Come here," he said. "No? Deja? Make me." His grin widened. Challenge accepted. He feinted left. She went right. He anticipated it. Apparently 6 months of watching her swim had taught him something about her movement patterns. And his hand caught her wrist. She squeaked. Actually squeaked. A sound she'd never made before in her life. "Gotcha," Dave said. She tried to pull away. He held firm. "No fair," she protested. "You're stronger than me. Should have thought of that before you started running." He pulled her toward him slowly, giving her every chance to pull away if she wanted to. She didn't want to. "Hi," he said softly when she was close enough to feel his breath on her face. "Hi. I caught you. You caught me. What do I win?" She pretended to think about it. "A firm and springy mattress? I made sure to get one without the cloudy stuff." "The cloudy stuff was terrible." "I know. I did extensive research." "I noticed. You spent 3 weeks on mattress reviews." "It was important. Everything is important to you." He kissed her forehead. "That's one of the things I love about you." She melted into him, letting him hold her weight, trusting him completely. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "Me too." "Really?" "Really." He pulled back to look at her face. "I've never done this with someone I actually love. Someone who matters. It's terrifying. Statistically, billions of people have done this successfully. The odds are in our favor. Only you would cite statistics right now. Is that bad? It's perfect." He kissed her. "You're perfect. Every strange, literal, incredible piece of you. You're so beautiful, Deja." She kissed him back. Deeper this time, more confident. "Take me to bed," she said against his mouth. The firm and springy one. "Yes, ma'am." He swept her up in his arms, his legs wobbling slightly but holding, and carried her to the bedroom. The door closed behind them. 2 years later, the photograph hung in the living room of the penthouse. In it, Deja stood on an Olympic podium, a gold medal around her neck. Tokyo, her second Olympics. The moment she'd finally proved to the world, and to herself, that she was extraordinary. World record, gold medal, the first openly autistic woman to win Olympic gold in swimming. Beside that photo was another one. Deja and Dave on their wedding anniversary renewal ceremony, Scout the golden retriever between them, Richard making bunny ears behind Dave's head. And next to that, a third photo. Deja in a hospital bed, exhausted but smiling, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in yellow. The baby's name was Lily. She had Dave's eyes and Deja's chin and a full head of dark hair that stuck up in every direction. She was 3 months old now, and she was the most perfect thing either of them had ever seen. Richard was her official godfather. He'd cried when they asked him. He'd also cried at Deja's gold medal ceremony, and at the wedding renewal. And when he'd been officially appointed as Deja's financial manager, handling the sponsorship deals and endorsement contracts that had flooded in after the Olympics. He cried a lot these days. Happy tears, always. Maria was now with them. No longer an employee, but family. She had her own room in the penthouse and spent most of her time spoiling Lily with handmade baby clothes and off-key lullabies. Scout had adjusted to the new addition with surprising grace. She slept outside Lily's nursery door every night like a furry guardian. And Dave? Dave walked now. Really walked, without a cane, without support. Some stiffness in cold weather, as the doctors had predicted, but nothing that stopped him from living a full life. He'd reclaimed his position at Birch Holdings, restructured the company, and forced his mother into retirement. Mrs. Birch lived in a smaller house now, alone, her power and influence reduced to nothing. She'd tried to reach out several times, but Dave had refused every attempt. He wasn't the type to forgive easily, and some things couldn't be forgiven. Eleanor and Michelle were in prison. Attempted assault with a caustic substance. 5 to 7 years, the judge had said. They'd be out eventually. But by then, Deja wouldn't care. They were no longer part of her story. Now Deja stood at the window of the penthouse, Lily cradled against her chest, watching the city lights below. Dave came up behind her, wrapping his arms around both of them. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything." She leaned back into him. "That day at the hospital, the white dress, you telling me you were supposed to marry someone else? Worst day of my life, turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. For me too." They stood there in silence for a long moment. Then Deja said, "Your zipper is open." Dave looked down. It wasn't. He looked back up at her, and she was smiling. That real smile. The one that had taken him months to earn. "That wasn't funny the first time," he said. "It was a little funny. It was mortifying. Also funny." He laughed, pulling her and Lily closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I love you," he said. "Both of you. So much it terrifies me." That's statistically normal. Parents often report feeling, "I'm going to kiss you now to make you stop citing statistics." That seems like an effective strategy. He kissed her. Lily gurgled happily between them. Scout barked from the other room, demanding attention. They ignored her. They had all the time in the world. "We did it, y'all. We finished the story. From that awkward first meeting to Olympic gold to babies, what a journey. I need you to do 3 things right now. 1. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment from this entire series. Was it the pool rescue? The confrontation with Eleanor? The chase scene? The zipper callback? Let me know. 2. Like this video and all the previous videos. Let's make this story go mega viral. 3. Share this with someone who needs a good love story. Someone who needs to hear that being different isn't being broken. Someone who needs to know that happy endings are possible. And finally, subscribe and hit that notification bell if you're not already, because I have more stories coming. More underdogs, more love, more triumph, more face-slapping revenge on villains who deserve it. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Thank you for believing in Deja when the world told her she was broken. Thank you for rooting for Dave when he wanted to give up. Thank you for crying with Richard and cheering for their family. You're all incredible. Yes, you. Listening to this right now. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, this is Funtime Folktales.